In a grand kingdom, a hero is summoned before the throne for what should be a great honor. Joran Tamer, I hereby appoint you as the border lord, the queen declares, but he has no idea what that means. The entire court erupts in whispers, certain she must have made a mistake. Silence, she roars, her voice cutting through the hall like a blade. The queen glares down at the stunned young man, coldly asking, Joran Tamer, are you deaf? She presses him further, her gaze unyielding. Then why do you not acknowledge my command? He freezes, a mysterious status window appearing before him as he panics about what to do. Overwhelmed, Joran falls to his knees, desperately pleading, please take it back. But she sees only defiance, asking if he intends to refuse her will as he tries to explain his confusion. Her eye narrows with fury over a simple slip of the tongue. What did you just call me? Joran desperately tries to explain his slip of the tongue, but the queen's fury is absolute. Ignoring his pleas, she magically presents the territory he is now forced to govern. The court erupts in whispers as they realize he's been sent to the cursed city of Apocalypse. With a single word, the queen silences the entire hall, her authority unquestionable. She officially renames the desolate land, declaring, from this moment on, I name it the Tamer Fief. A brave minister dares to question her, asking about the unprecedented title of border lord. That is to be expected, she calmly replies. I have just now created it. She then smiles, congratulating him on his unique title and entrusting him with her people's safety. Defeated, Joran can only bow his head in gratitude, accepting the impossible mission. The ceremony concludes as she raises her sword, sealing his fate as the lord of a cursed land. The weight of his new title crashes down on Joran, who silently screams in utter despair. As the crowd pelts him with eggs, he can only curse his inescapable fate. He remembers the game's story. Joran Tamer was supposed to be the trusted captain of the Royal Guard. But in that timeline, he was just a tragic character, caught in an incident and destined to die. His own knights whisper behind his back, questioning his strange behavior ever since his resurrection. Why put me into some lame character? He rages, regretting the quest that trapped him here. But just a short time ago, he was Bang Ho Young, a 27-year-old logistics employee starting another mundane day. His routine began 3 years ago, when he became the sole guardian for his younger siblings. He had no grand dreams, only a simple wish to do more for the family he had left. Lost in his work, he barely noticed the time fly by, completely unaware of the fate that awaited him. His only escape from a grueling day was a mobile game called Rain of Dice. He casually checks his in-game sales before deciding which hero to use for his daily quest. His favorite strategy revolves around the shaman's unique conversion skill, which turns enemies into allies. When a massive ogre appears, he doesn't hesitate, commanding, "You, become one of my soldiers." With the beast converted, he sets his sights on the remaining troll shamans to complete the stage. The quest is cleared easily, leaving him with a surplus of 3,500 kill points. But just as he relaxes, a shocking notification appears. A season-exclusive quest has been unlocked. He's immediately suspicious, remembering Apocalypse was a city in the game, not a fief. Is this for real? He stammers, as the impossible notification glows on his screen. The reward is unbelievable. A massive real-world cash prize and 5 mythic-grade items, a prize that could change his life forever. Ho Young grins at the mythic rewards, dismissing the hardcore mode warning as an amazing deal, while the game's chat explodes. He hesitates for a moment, wondering if he should risk it all for a sum of money he could never earn otherwise. But thinking of his younger siblings seals the deal, and with a determined, "All right, I'm in," he smashes the participate button. The world instantly darkens as the Apocalypse Fief defense quest unlocks, his eye widening in pure, unadulterated shock. An emergency patch applies an ultra-hardcore mode, and a chilling voice declares that failure doesn't just mean game over, it means death. A terrifying dragon materializes from the darkness as the system warns, "You cannot give up, and you cannot stop." The beast's roar throws him to the ground while the final rule is revealed. There is no escape until the quest is complete. His body is engulfed in a blinding light as he lets out a soul-tearing scream, his consciousness ripped from his world. And just like that, he awakens in a new body, the body of a game character named Joran Tamer, whose soul was overwritten. As he confirms he can still see the status window, a new message appears. Time in his reality is frozen, and this death game is his only way back. He clutches his chest in relief, realizing he can return to his siblings once this is all over. But his thoughts are interrupted by his new adjutant, Lillian, whose status window reveals her deep disappointment in him. He ponders this strange ability, wondering what exactly this status window is that reveals everyone's secrets. Lillian catches him muttering and confronts him, forcing him to scramble for an explanation he doesn't have. She suddenly tests him with a simple question. "Captain, do you remember when you first met me?" Of course he remembers. He unlocked her character countless times while playing the game from his world. But she presses further, wanting to know the exact words he spoke to her on that fateful day. The scene flashes back to a desolate forest, where a much younger Lillian is found weeping all alone. The original Joran Tamer approaches from behind, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder as he says her name. With a kind expression, he offers his hand and makes a simple, life-changing promise. "Let's go together." Lillian's eyes well up with tears, a wave of emotion washing over her as her doubts finally fade. She tries to dismiss him, saying, "The soldiers are waiting," but he knows this moment is crucial. He gently places a hand on her shoulder, stopping her with a single word, "Lillian." With a confident smile, he repeats the exact promise from that day, "Let's go together," and she realizes he remembered. Now, Joran stands before his assembled army on the parade ground, the weight of command on his shoulders. He notes their loyalty has plummeted from over 90 to a mere 50, a dangerous drop in morale. He admits to himself that he can't blame them for doubting a leader marching them towards an apocalypse city. He acknowledges the original Joran's charisma, a trait he knows he doesn't possess, and silently asks for help. This is the single moment that will decide the fate of every soldier under his command. He begins his speech, entrusting the final choice to them. "The authority to decide our company's fate has been entrusted to me, however. The choice of where you will go." Joran finishes his speech, declaring the choice to follow him into ruin is yours alone, leaving his soldiers in stunned silence. He explains that he could have taken an easy path to power but chose this dangerous one alongside them. Instead of comfort, he roars a challenge to his men. "I'd rather we share hardship and joy together." A system notification confirms his words are working as he promises to repay their loyalty, no matter the cost. He makes one final, unbreakable vow, that he will make their lives worth living, inspiring them completely. One by one, his soldiers raise their hands, their cheers echoing as his leadership skill suddenly levels up. With his army's loyalty secured, Joran immediately travels to the imposing royal castle for his next move. There, he kneels before the queen, who coldly demands to know why the Borderland Count has appeared before her. Joran makes a shocking request, asking for the queen's personal attendants to accompany him on his suicide mission. But she questions his logic, wondering why a man whose soldiers already chose to follow him would need anyone else. Joran declares his new plan to recruit imprisoned convicts in exchange for a royal pardon. At the prison, he shocks the staff by clarifying he isn't there to visit, but to release inmates. The warden tries to offload a worthless bandit, but Joran's status window reveals the man's treacherous intent. "None of these guys are useful at all," Joran scoffs, easily seeing through the warden's pathetic deception. But then his eyes lock onto an unexpected prisoner, a priestess with haunting red eyes sitting silently in her cell. The warden explains her impossible crime, 2 counts of murder, but with only a single victim. The chilling truth is revealed. She killed someone, resurrected them, then killed them again. The priestess challenges their definition of murder, asking why she's being punished for killing a monster. "They deserve death," she screams, revealing her victim was a fiend who sold children to dark mages. Sensing Joran's understanding, she smiles and poses a terrifying question. "Do you know why I killed him twice?" Joran calmly answers her twisted riddle. "Because you can only resurrect someone once." Her eyes burn with righteous fury as she admits she would have killed that beast 100 more times. She introduces herself as Luvia, and a system window declares this an important character encounter. Joran quickly scans her stats, noting her incredible A+ divine power is offset by a dangerous personality. Caught staring, he quickly regains his composure to make his formal offer. He promises her a high-ranking position in his territory, complete with special privileges. The privilege he offers is the one thing she craves most, the right to punish the guilty. A slow, satisfied smile spreads across her face as she simply says, "I'll join you." They shake hands, sealing the pact as Joran welcomes the deadly priestess into his ranks. With his newest and most dangerous recruit secured, they finally leave the desolate prison behind. As they venture deeper, Joran questions the strangely low ceiling, learning this section is for non-human prisoners. Inside a cell sits a young half-blood, imprisoned for theft and serving a 7-year sentence. When asked what he stole, the boy confesses he tried to steal a woman's heart, and settled for her house deed instead. His logic is twisted, believing it's only natural to live in the house of the woman who rejected you. Utterly baffled by this insane reasoning, Joran decides the only way to understand is to check his status window. The window reveals Bowunal, a half-blood dungeon mercenary whose stats are decent but marred by a kleptomania quirk. But his background reveals valuable skills in scouting and disarming traps, making him a potential asset. More useful than I thought, Joran muses, realizing this strange prisoner could be exactly what he needs. He begins his pitch, pointing out the harsh reality of the 6 long years Bounal has left to serve. You call that tough? Joran counters, describing the goblin scrap food and forced labor before making his true offer. Realizing the prisoner is focused on food, Joran decides on a new tactic to break his will. He makes a simple offer: freedom and guaranteed delicious meals, a stark contrast to the prison slop. But Bounal scoffs, claiming he can just buy better food anyway, trying to call Joran's bluff. Unfazed, Joran calls a guard to reveal the night's special menu, a disgusting concoction of fermented jelly and slime salad. The mere description of the meal makes Bounal break out in a cold sweat, his resolve completely crumbling. I'll go, he screams, instantly surrendering to avoid the horrifying prison food. With a triumphant smile, Joran welcomes his new, easily swayed recruit to the tamer territory. The story then shifts to Joran's own mansion, a reward for past achievements that he barely ever used. It was barely staffed, and even the housekeeper fled in terror, leaving only a single maid behind. His thoughts drift back 4 years ago, to a memory that seems to hold the key to this mysterious maid. 4 years ago, Joran questioned a soldier about a group of hostages they had just rescued from bandits. But one girl, despite being freed, simply refused to leave, her eyes completely empty. Seeing she had nowhere to go, he approached her directly with a simple question. He offered her a new life with a gentle invitation: come with us. Back in the present, Joran remembers that this was the very same maid now serving him, as he casually considers selling his mansion. But his words send a jolt of terror through her as she cries out, "Master, are you going to sell me off?" Flustered, he clarifies he meant the house, not her, completely unaware of the depth of her attachment. Her relief is palpable, but a glance at her status window reveals a terrifying S+ rank quirk. She is overly obsessed with her master. She passionately vows to follow him to the ends of the continent, a declaration he mistakes for simple loyalty. But her promise turns sinister as she vows to chase him beyond the world if he ever abandoned her, a threat backed by the system's impossible 0.001% resignation rate. As his obsessive maid asks if he's sick, Joran internally cringes at being called master by someone so young. She gets uncomfortably close, claiming she's heard he suffers from headaches since his revival. Feeling suffocated, he shoves her away, demanding she move. Peach reacts with theatrical shock, crying out, "How could you say such harsh words when I'm worrying about you?" Flustered, he quickly tries to clarify that he just needs her to step back a little. He then demands she call him Lord, but she masterfully guilt-trips him, questioning if his new status has hardened his heart. Defeated, he concedes but cleverly pivots, asking if her loyalty extends to following his orders. She nods firmly, unknowingly walking right into his trap. With her compliance secured, Joran's expression turns serious as he begins to lay down the harsh truth of their mission. "We're not going on a picnic," he warns, revealing their destination as a den of monsters at the end of a long, difficult road. "The comfort you've had in this house will no longer exist," he warns her of the coming dangers. She'll face hardships far beyond just serving him, a reality that even his adjutant takes seriously. "I won't force you," he says calmly, giving her the choice to stay behind and guard the house. Whether she comes or stays, he tells her, either way is a big help to him. But his words unexpectedly trigger a system achievement, and Peach ecstatically screams, "I will follow Master, I'll do anything." With hearts literally glowing in her eyes, her obsessive loyalty is cemented in a terrifying vow. A system notification confirms it. Her taming level has surged from 100 to a staggering 150. Yet, as they depart, Joran can't even control his own warhorse, a beast with shockingly high stats. The animal's instincts sense a change in its master, and the system offers a costly shortcut to tame it. Lillian watches with growing suspicion. The man who lived in the saddle now rides like a complete amateur. Gripping the reins, he names the difficult horse Mayong, after his troublesome younger sister from his past life. A system window flashes as he officially begins the taming process, his eyes widening with focus. The warhorse instantly submits, a notification confirming that receiving a name has boosted its taming stats. Now in full command, a confident smirk spreads across his face as he shouts, "All right, let's go." Their journey takes them down the Fordwick Highway, a massive road connecting the capital to the kingdom's various territories. Thanks to angelic blessings, this highway is a perfectly safe zone where no monsters can ever approach. Yet the sheer monotony of the endless road begins to wear on Joran's patience. His adjutant Lillian suddenly pulls alongside him, her expression serious. "My lord, I have something to tell you." He finally understands her earlier stares. She wasn't suspicious. She had crucial information she'd gathered for him. He asks why she didn't rest, but she simply apologizes for not following his order, her diligence absolute. Lillian reveals shocking news. Monsters are appearing on the highway to Rainfa, a supposedly safe road. Joran is stunned, questioning how this is possible on a road protected by angelic blessings. His adjutant confirms it's no mere rumor, as she witnessed troops being dispatched to the western plains. Frustrated, Joran realizes their smooth journey is over, now facing a critical choice between the highway or a long detour. As he contemplates, a familiar game-like window appears, presenting him with two distinct paths. The system lays out the stakes: a dangerous but rewarding direct path, or a safe but costly detour. Instead of deciding alone, he turns to Lillian, asking for her opinion and catching her completely off guard. Though honored, she defers, stating she will follow his command and that the final decision must be his. But she offers a crucial piece of advice: keep the monster threat a secret from the other troops. Her reasoning is sound. The news would shatter their forces' morale, especially the newly recruited and unstable prisoners. Lillian is stunned as Joran insists he must tell everyone the truth, regardless of their path. He acknowledges her point but knows he can't follow it, because hiding the truth is not the duty of a true leader. He reasons that an ambush would cause far more panic than a prepared force ever could. With his decision made, he raises his hand and roars, "Everyone, halt the march!" He then reveals the grim news. Monsters have appeared on the highway to the western plains. The announcement sends a wave of shock through his forces, with some soldiers treating it as a simple warm-up. The powerful priestess Luvia smirks, welcoming the chaos and muttering, "Monsters? Fine by me." But the young half-blood Bawunal is terrified, wishing he had just stayed in his prison cell. As the prisoners shout about a breach of contract, Lillian's voice cuts through the noise with a single command: "Silence! Anyone who speaks before the Margrave has finished," Lillian declares, "will be considered insubordinate." With order restored, Joran makes his command clear, deciding to push forward on the highway despite the danger. Riding ahead, he addresses the porters directly, promising to guarantee their safety as their employer. His words level up his leadership skill, but while some discontent is eased, it's not entirely gone. One of the porters then steps forward, demanding what amounts to hazard pay for the increased risk. Suddenly, a system window presents him with an impossible choice: appease the porters and anger the soldiers, or vice versa. He realizes the trap paying one group would inevitably create resentment in the other, a perfect lose-lose scenario. But then he remembers facing a similar terrible choice when recruiting his obsessive pink-haired maid, Peach. Back then, he refused both options and created a third path, a different solution entirely. So he makes a new offer. "If monsters appear and we defeat them, I will share a portion of the spoils with you as a reward." He lays out his condition. The porters must help with defenses like building barricades and traps. The porters eagerly agree to the terms, promising to work hard under his protection. But to appease his soldiers, he declares that they will receive the primary rewards for defeating any monsters. He reminds them that their allegiance was once to the kingdom, a system that limited his authority. But now, as the Margrave appointed by the Queen, he declares them his personal vassals. "Therefore, I can reward you as I see fit," he roars, as the system confirms his gambit worked, dramatically increasing everyone's loyalty. The entire company erupts in cheers of "Long live the Margrave," their morale completely unified behind him. Sometime later, their journey brings them to the West Plains outpost, a brief stop on their long march. There, he learns of a grave new threat: reports of trolls appearing in a nearby village. The guard confirms the official notice, warning that merchant caravans are now at risk of being attacked. He gives a stern order to stay vigilant for any urgent news about the encroaching threat. Suddenly, his maid Peach interrupts his thoughts, asking with concern, "Master, aren't you tired?" He brushes off her worry and tells her to rest, but she just pouts at how harsh he is. She inwardly notes how different he's become, attributing the strange new behavior to his resurrection. When she complains about her feet hurting, he flatly denies her request for a donkey, refusing to give her special treatment. Though she calls him mean for his firm refusal, she quietly resolves to endure the hardship. She vows that one day, she won't be walking behind him but sitting right beside him in a carriage. Meanwhile, his soldiers gather around a fire, shocked by the news of monsters on the main road. One of them questions how it's even possible, since the Podwin Highway is supposed to be blessed against such creatures. Just then, a mysterious woman with long blonde hair approaches their camp asking for a light, her true intentions completely unknown. The mysterious woman lights her pipe with a snap of her fingers, the flame appearing from thin air. Curious why monsters are showing up? She smirks, revealing a shocking truth: the angels are neglecting their duties. She scoffs at their half-hearted blessing, calling it a complete dereliction of duty from the heavens. Seeing the soldiers' fear, she casually promises that if her blasphemy gets them killed, she'll just resurrect them. She then morbidly instructs them to collect her ashes in a box if she gets burned to a crisp. The men are left completely speechless by her terrifying nonchalance. She turns away, lost in thought as she mutters to herself about divine lightning. If the angels were doing their jobs, she muses, they'd be striking down monsters, not a delinquent priestess. Suddenly, she turns and offers her pipe to an unseen figure, respectfully asking, "Care for a puff, my lord?" A hand reaches out to accept her offer, revealing the Lord himself has been listening the entire time. Joran takes a puff from the pipe, musing that it tastes good, even if it's not his original body. Luvia then asks for his thoughts on why monsters are suddenly appearing on the highway. He knows the terrifying truth that reality and the game have merged, but he can't possibly explain it. Luvia scoffs, saying it's greedy to expect a 500-year-old blessing to still be working. He agrees, and Luvia, impressed by his candor, asks about his parents, only to learn they died in an accident. She quickly apologizes, then presses further with a chilling question. Were they killed by monsters? His eyes harden as he recalls the monster from his world, a hit-and-run driver, who couldn't be called human. A dark understanding passes between them as Luvia realizes they have something tragic in common. Suddenly, while leading his troops on horseback, Joran brings the entire procession to a dead stop. His adjutant looks on in confusion as he stares ahead, having sensed an unseen threat on the road. A subquest suddenly appears, and Joran recognizes the annoying mob monster, Mandragorani, from his past life. He knows their secret, a deer-like beast whose scream cripples allies with a powerful debuff. His first mission is to protect the carts, but he senses something unnatural in the still air. "Everyone, listen up," he roars. "Mandragorani are nearby. First squad, form a circle." His troops instantly obey, planting their spears to create a defensive wall around the baggage carts. He then orders Peach to get wet cotton and plug the soldiers' ears immediately. With the defense set, he leads the second and third squads out to form a search line. Spotting a likely hiding spot, he commands Bawunal, "Throw a rock into the western bushes." The half-blood instantly complies, hurling a stone with incredible speed and power. A piercing shriek erupts from the trees as the hidden monster is finally revealed. Joran stares in disbelief at the creature his strategy has revealed, instinctively yelling, "Cavalry, charge!" as the monstrous deer rushes forward with a terrifying shriek. But a chilling thought suddenly paralyzes him. In this new body, he has zero combat experience. "I'm screwed," he thinks, realizing he's a commander leading a charge who can't even fight. His adjutant, Lillian, watches him closely, forcing him to hide his sudden panic or risk losing all authority. Suddenly, his soldiers begin screaming in agony, their ear protection proving useless against the monster's sonic attack. Yet Joran himself is strangely unaffected, wondering if his past life's military service somehow prepared him for this. A system window reveals a bizarre new trait that grants him immunity, but then a far worse oversight dawns on him. "Luvia! Quickly cast protection magic on the horses," he screams, realizing his fatal mistake far too late. The unprotected mounts descend into chaos, neighing in terror as the sound overwhelms them. His entire cavalry charge shatters before it even begins as Lillian is thrown violently from her panicking steed. Joran's own warhorse begins to panic uncontrollably, neighing in terror from the sonic attack. He desperately tries to regain control, shouting at the beast as it thrashes wildly beneath him. But his efforts are useless as the horse violently bucks him high into the air. Joran screams, plummeting from the sky before crashing hard onto the ground below. In a 1 in a million accident, he lands directly on the Mandragorani leader, instantly killing it. The system praises him for an instant boss kill, but he's just stunned, surrounded by the now leaderless creatures. The once aggressive monsters now stare at him with terrified, tear-filled eyes, their will to fight completely gone. As his soldiers rush to protect him, Joran realizes he somehow won without ever drawing his sword. A system window reveals the truth. These are gentle creatures, driven to violence by fear and now terrified. Knowing taming is impossible, he uses his newfound authority to command the system itself, shouting, "Pacify." The system confirms his pacification worked, granting him 2 Mandragorani allies who now await his command. He immediately tests his authority, shouting for them to give a vigorous battle cry forward. As his new pets let out a piercing shriek, Joran draws his own blade, a grim determination on his face. With newfound power, he surges forward, a blur of motion as he tests his body's limits. "Good, it works just like in the game," he thinks, a confident grin spreading across his face. His swordsmanship is nothing special, but he's shocked by how light the heavy blade feels in his hands. He quickly corrects himself. The sword isn't light, but this body is damn strong. A system window reveals the shocking truth. A trait has activated, adding his original physical abilities onto this new body. This power boost grants him the strength of 3 men, a perfect bonus for a man with sword skill level 0. But a new mystery emerges from the trait's name, leaving him to wonder, does it mean Joran is 2 and I'm 1? Joran's newly tamed Mandragorani attack their own kind, one struck by ice and the other by fire. But his soldiers are frozen in place, forcing him to scream, "Hey, you guys attack too." His other tamed creatures hesitate, whispering that the enemies are still their kin. He understands their plea, realizing he can't force them to slaughter their own family. This was never in the game. He wonders if his pacification skill is too low as his pets agree. Suddenly, his adjutant Lillian cries out, "My lord!" Sensing the dangerous shift in battle, a wild Mandragorani breaks through the line, leaping directly at them with a furious roar. Without a moment's hesitation, Lillian plants her feet and prepares to intercept the monster. With a powerful thrust, she skewers the creature midair in a brutal display of loyalty. But nearby, the other soldiers collapse, their strength mysteriously draining away just from hearing the monster's cry. Joran screams a desperate order, "Aim for the neck," remembering it's the only way to instantly silence their debilitating cries. So he commands his own tamed monsters. Number 9. Scream, using their cries to counter the enemy's attack in a brilliant move. With a smirk, he taunts the wild beasts, revealing his plan, using his own tamed creatures as a perfect debuffing support unit. He orchestrates a symphony of chaos, commanding number 8 to scream while holding number 9 inches reserve, perfectly timing their sonic assaults. The strategy pays off as a wild Mandragorani's throat is slit, its life-draining screams silenced in a spray of blood. His adjutant Lillian watches in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend how Joran has turned the monsters against their own kind. Explanation later. Joran snaps, pointing to 2 specific creatures and ordering his troops not to kill them, hinting at a larger plan. But suddenly, the remaining wild monsters break off and flee, leaving Joran to wonder where on earth they're going. The horrifying realization dawns on him as he spots their target, the army's vital supply wagons. "Damn, everyone chase them," he roars, realizing the entire frontal assault was just a diversion for a much more devastating attack. With no horse in sight, Joran desperately calls out to his tamed monster, "Number 8, please give me a ride." The creature is confused, but Joran gives it a firm command to lie down, leaving no room for argument. His adjutant Lillian watches in stunned silence, whispering, "My goodness, he got on a monster." But Joran simply smirks, thinking that if there's no horse, a Mandragorani will have to do. He charges forward on his bizarre new steed, as soldiers behind him scramble into defensive positions. Meanwhile, the wild monsters reach the supply wagons, only to be met by Bowunal and a wall of spears. The half-blood scout stands his ground, defiantly roaring, "You picked the wrong opponents." He then unleashes a perfectly aimed bola that ensnares the lead beast mid-charge. The monster lets out a pained shriek as it's violently thrown to the ground, its momentum completely broken. This single, decisive action throws the entire enemy assault into chaos as the soldiers successfully defend their vital supplies. Luvia, the priestess, smirks, realizing her timid lord left her here for this very purpose. She begins a powerful prayer to protect the weak, unleashing a blinding flash of light upon the charging beasts. With serene focus, she commands the monsters to embrace the light. Her eyes flare with divine power as she screams for the holy energy to shine and burst forth. Golden pillars of judgment rain from the sky, instantly neutralizing the entire monster horde in a wave of holy fire. Seeing his opening, Joran immediately orders his men to the barricades to block any chance of escape. His soldiers quickly push the heavy supply wagons into place, forming an impenetrable wall. The terrified creatures cry out in confusion, realizing they've been completely cornered. Joran taunts the trapped beasts, welcoming them to what he calls his personal deer ranch. He then reveals his trump card. The supply wagons are actually deadly sword carts, designed for slaughter. With the monsters trapped, Joran declares with a confident smile, "All right, let's go." He approaches the terrified creatures, offering one a choice. "Will you become my livestock?" before callously swinging a bottle at its head. But for another with a high pacification level, he offers a deal, promising leniency if it serves him well, and the creature instantly agrees. With a triumphant grin, Joran welcomes his first tamed monster to the tamer territory. He internally compares this to a gotcha pull, deciding that killing them would be wasteful and vowing, "I'll work you to the bone." Suddenly, his adjutant Lillian rushes forward, stopping the soldiers and asking with deep concern if her lord is all right. When he reassures her, she snaps back, questioning his sanity, and asking if he's gone crazy from the revival's after effects. His own soldiers murmur in dissent, their agitation threatening to undo the fragile pacification he's achieved. Joran grits his teeth, knowing the risks all too well, but then his attention shifts to the deer fur he collected earlier. He realizes the fur is surprisingly fluffy and useful, sparking a brilliant idea to win over his skeptical troops. To quell the rising mutiny, Joran addresses his troops, asking them to listen to his strange words. He reveals his revival wasn't without side effects, claiming it awakened a powerful new ability within him. This power, he declares, is monster pacification, and he calls forward 2 terrified creatures to prove it. He gently reassures the trembling mandragorani, promising them safety and delicious hay if they obey. Then, he issues a series of absurd commands, which the monsters flawlessly execute on the spot. The soldiers can only stare in shock, wondering if their lord's impossible ability is actually real. One man watches them walk away peacefully, muttering that he never imagined seeing monsters so docile. Joran presses his advantage, explaining how their horns can be used to create powerful potions. He reveals the horns have incredible strength, recovery effects, and orders his maid Peach to prepare a demonstration. To be the test subject, he calls forward a mid-level soldier named Yak, who is stunned to be chosen. Joran reveals the soldier's hidden ailments with impossible accuracy, leaving the man stunned. "The status window told me," he grins, offering a tea made from the monster's horn. The soldier is suspicious, but Joran promises to take full responsibility for the outcome. Trusting his lord, the soldier reluctantly takes a sip of the strange brew. A sudden surge of power floods his body, completely healing him in an instant. The priestess Luvia confirms his recovery, though her examination seems a bit too personal. "You have such soft hands," she comments with a sly smile, flustering the soldier. Joran then reveals his master plan. These horns are a priceless resource for the entire territory. He asks his men what it would be like to have a constant supply of such treasure, and the docile monsters eagerly nod, ready to become a renewable source of wealth. Joran reminds his men of ancient legends, where princes rode griffins and dragons sided with humanity. But the priestess Luvia voices her doubt, questioning if monsters, once tamed, could simply turn on them later. "Don't worry," he says with a confident smile, revealing he can see their loyalty level and will let her punish any who rebel. To his surprise, the priestess grins, admitting the idea of punishing monsters sounds kind of fun. Joran turns to the creatures, demanding to know if they'll attack humans again, and they frantically promise they won't. He then offers them a simple contract, their labor in exchange for comfortable shelter, quality food, and even vacation time. A system window suddenly erupts, announcing his pacification skill has skyrocketed from level 2 to 4 inches a single moment. Facing his stunned troops, he issues a challenge. "Now, is there anyone who opposes taking these poor beasts?" The system awards him an A+ grade, but he realizes that pacification, while better than slaughter, yields no kill points. Brushing the details aside, he declares a victory feast, and his men erupt in a unified roar. Long live the Baron of the Borderlands. The victory feast begins with a question about the strange meat on the table. Was it deer? Lillian explains the danger of leaving monster corpses, but Joran has a different, unsettling idea. Isn't there an option to burn them? His adjutant confirms the plan with a shocking twist. "We are burning them. On the stove." As Peach serves the questionable stew, she promises not to feed them anything she wouldn't eat herself. Even the cook sergeant grumbles, questioning his lord's sanity for insisting on cooking monster meat. The priestess Luvia offers a cynical prayer over the meal, asking to drive the parasites from the stupid and sinful monster. Staring at the final dish, even Joran can't help but wonder if it's truly edible. But after a hesitant bite, he's surprised to find it's better than expected, crediting the cooks for their skill. He then approaches the skeptical cook sergeant, requesting his cooperation but also pointing out his annoying habit of saying TSK. Joran gives a precise order to separate the fat from the belly skin, receiving a reluctant "skies" in response. Joran gives another precise order to wrap the sirloin in fat, earning a resentful tease from the skeptical cook. He continues, "Tie it well with string," before issuing a sharp threat to cut the cook's pay for his constant complaints. The sirloin is placed into the oven, and Joran immediately orders the ribs to be skewered with whole onions. To unify everyone's taste, Joran makes a decisive call on how the meat should be cooked, a perfect medium. The cook again questions him with a tesk, but Joran shuts him down with a dark warning about dragon rare. As the cooks prepare the salad, Joran unveils a mysterious pot of soy sauce, a foreign seasoning that worries his maid. Tasting the strange concoction, Joran declares his goal isn't to please himself, but to win over the people of his territory. The recipe gets even stranger as he adds alcohol and tea to counter the smell, making Peach suspect it's some kind of black magic. His bizarre cooking continues as he orders Peach to juice a bowl of fresh fruits and add them to the seasoning. The cook reports the meat is at Mango M, prompting Joran to calmly order it be taken out for a short rest. With the meat perfectly cooked, Joran presents a slice to the skeptical cook sergeant. "Sprinkle rock salt on the meat," he commands. "Now, try it." The first bite sends a shockwave of flavor through the sergeant, leaving him utterly speechless. He immediately apologizes for his rudeness, as a system window declares Joran's passive skill has skyrocketed from level 4 to level 6. The other cooks dig in, their disbelief turning to pure ecstasy as they devour the delicious monster meat. Joran then orders all the cooks to start eating, declaring that he'll handle the rest of the work himself. Soon, the entire camp is erupting in celebration, with even his most loyal followers like Peach and Lillian feasting with joy. But amidst the revelry, a new, tantalizing aroma begins to drift through the air, catching the soldiers' attention. Joran smirks, knowing his next creation is a masterpiece worthy of a television show. He proudly unveils the grand finale, a dish named Mandragorani bulgogi, and the crowd roars with thunderous approval. As night falls over the camp, the revelry of the feast finally subsides. The troops, full and satisfied, sleep soundly for the first time in ages. But one person remains awake, troubled by the day's impossible events. "I don't understand," Lillian murmurs. She recalls how the useless Joran she knew suddenly started cooking monster meat, an act no noble would consider. He even served the food himself, acting less like a lord and more like a true leader. And then there was his most shocking ability, pacifying monsters, a power that shouldn't even exist. Yet despite the mystery, she makes a firm decision. "No, I've decided to believe in my lord." Suddenly, a voice cuts through the silence from his tent, asking why she's still awake. She turns to see her lord stepping out from the shadows. Without a word, he suddenly pulls her close, leaving her utterly stunned by his unexpected action. Lillian lunges at her lord, but he dodges with impossible speed, leaving her stumbling and exclaiming, "Ah, damn, you scared me." Standing face to face, he calmly asks if she was training, but her flustered expression reveals her true intent. She questions his excuse about losing his swordsmanship due to revival, and he simply agrees. "That's right. I felt it earlier," she says, her eyes sharp with suspicion. "You were worse than a trainee." He nervously asks if she only has one question, but her cold gaze tells him this is just the beginning. She lays out the impossible contradiction. His skill is gone, yet his raw physical strength has mysteriously skyrocketed. Her words hit a nerve as she theorizes. It's like the strength of one more person was added. He tries to play it off, but she presses harder, questioning his unheard-of ability to pacify monsters. His hand clenches into a fist as he realizes he's been completely backed into a corner. Lillian declares that the man she once knew would never have used such power, confirming her suspicion that he is not the same person. He asks if she's questioning him because his methods go against a knight's honor. With cold pragmatism, he declares, "Honor doesn't feed the territorial citizens. It can't protect them either." Lillian tries to argue, but he cuts her off, speaking her name with a sudden authority. His words hang in the air, a silent admission that the swordsman she knew is truly gone. He confesses his own confusion, claiming that coming back to life has been disorienting. "Trust and follow me," he pleads, promising to regain what was lost as her eyes fill with doubt. He then makes a final, secretive request, asking her to keep his strange condition hidden from everyone. Overwhelmed by his honesty, she apologizes for making things difficult instead of being his strength. But then she pivots, her loyalty taking a new form as she tells him to pick up a wooden sword. He asks why, only for her to make a stunning declaration. "I will teach my lord swordsmanship." "Get ready," Lillian commands, initiating the promised swordsmanship training with her lord. A flashback reveals it was the original Joran Tamer who first taught her how to fight. With fierce determination, she declares, "The teachings you gave me, now I'll return them to you." A flurry of red slashes fills the air as she unleashes her full, unforgiving skill upon him. The brutal session ends with Joran bruised and battered, admitting, "Ugh, Lillian, you're quite tough." His maid, Peach, furiously tends to his wounds, unable to forgive anyone who would dare harm her master. He tells her it's late, but she desperately pleads, "Can't I stay by master's side?" He deflects her obsessive loyalty by assigning her the massive task of marinating all the leftover meat. Later that night, he's left alone, groaning as his entire body aches from the intense training. He sighs in regret, wondering if he should have just accepted a massage instead of kicking her out. He reflects that at least his brutal training taught him the basics of handling aura. But his body is just hardware, his software is lacking, and he knows pacifying a few monsters won't be enough for what's coming. He realizes his sword skills will only ever be for self-defense, not a primary weapon against hordes. He needs real firepower, dismissing bows and guns before landing on the idea of a hand cannon his strength can wield. The thought of becoming a ranged DPS is perfect, and his desire for power unlocks a new passive skill, Artillery Nation. He's thrilled with the new skill, but his excitement dies when he remembers he needs resources and technology to actually build anything. Suddenly, a system notification reveals his territory is rich in resources, including ancient magic stones, and he remembers he has one. For technology, the system suggests recruiting dwarves or mages, and he recalls seeing a dwarf when he scouted the prison. Just as he decides he needs both, a soldier bursts in shouting, "You, urgent news! The dire request is for the Baron of the Borderlands. Trolls and gremlins are attacking nearby villages, and they desperately need rescue." With villages under attack, Ho-Young confronts the monstrous troll head-on, sword at the ready. The beast roars, but he remembers Lillian's training, sidestepping the brute's clumsy charge. He unleashes a swift, aura-infused counterattack, aiming for a critical blow. His blade finds its mark, but he realizes with frustration, "Damn, I was too hasty." This is far harder than fighting the Mandragorani, as the sword's aura vanishes if he loses focus. To his shock, the troll's wounds begin to heal instantly, revealing its terrifying regeneration speed. Realizing he must overwhelm its healing, he lunges forward again, pouring all his focus into another strike. But the troll tanks the hit, its wounds already closing as it plans to win by trading blows. "If that's the case," he declares, refusing to back down from this battle of attrition. He leaps into the air, bringing his blade down with crushing force, aiming to sever its limb completely. His blade slices clean through, but as the troll's arm falls, the monster's body begins to fade into nothingness. Suddenly, a desperate cry cuts through the night as a soldier rushes to his fallen comrade, shouting, "Are you okay?" Kneeling beside him, Joran checks his vitals as the soldier groans, I'm fine." He realizes the man was struck by a troll's stone axe, a potentially fatal blow. A desperate idea forms using the troll's own blood to heal, but a system warning reveals the deadly risks. The soldier starts listing all the promises he has to keep, forcing Joran to bluntly tell him, "Don't raise death flags." He helps the man to his feet with a grim promise of resurrection, all while wondering where his reinforcements are. With his men in danger, he calls out a single name into the darkness, a desperate summons for aid. In response, the Mandragorani, his newly tamed allies, burst from the woods, answering his call. "Number 8, get him to the barracks and run," he commands, entrusting his soldier's life to his strange new cavalry. Joran rides into the fray, commanding his Mandragorani scouts to hunt down the trolls. But it's too late for one soldier, who lies defeated on the ground while his comrade Leo is missing. Leo stands frozen in terror, facing a hulking troll spearman and realizing he's too far to get help. Just as the soldier is about to be killed, Joran has a flash of inspiration and shouts a single command. "Pacify." A brilliant blue light engulfs the monster, stunning it mid-attack as the system confirms the skill's activation. With the troll under his control, Joran roars, "Throw that to the side," forcing the beast to obey. The troll's status window reveals its stats, but its mind is a mess, unable to comprehend what the human just did. The soldier stares in disbelief at the impossible scene, prompting Joran to yell, "Leo, get away quickly." Joran takes command of the battlefield, ordering Leo to regroup while he prepares to handle the pacified monster. Leo retreats with a renewed sense of hope, leaving the confused troll under the complete control of his lord. The remaining trolls stare in utter confusion, unable to comprehend why their ally has suddenly become a mindless puppet. But Joran's eyes remain cold and calculating as he analyzes the battlefield. His status window reveals a clear power gap, showing one troll is significantly weaker than the other. With a ruthless smirk, he points at the weaker target and issues a single, brutal command, "Beat that guy." His new pet roars, "Die," and immediately turns on its former comrade in a shocking display of betrayal. The weaker troll is instantly impaled through the neck, its eyes wide with disbelief as its life fades. It collapses to the ground, leaving the pacified monster standing over the corpse of its own kind. The carnage continues as the mind-controlled beast roars, "Take this," and charges the final, more powerful troll. Joran watches the chaos he created, thinking to himself that the best way to catch a con artist is with another con artist. But as the troll celebrates its victory before realizing the deception, Joran stands ready, his own power flaring as he prepares to end this. He stands over the fallen trolls, coldly admitting, "I feel a bit sorry for using and killing you, but I have no choice." A sudden system warning reveals trolls can regenerate, a threat he calmly acknowledges while preparing to finish the job. With a single, decisive flash of his blade, he ensures the monster stays dead for good. He reflects on the instability of his power, then reassures his terrified Mandragorani ally that it won't be harmed. But as he walks through the aftermath, he curses his mistake, realizing he should have kept the troll alive longer. His regret is cut short as two more massive trolls suddenly appear, questioning why they won't cooperate and just die. He tries to pacify them again, only to discover the ability is on a 1-minute cooldown, forcing him to shout, "Number 4, charge!" With his main skill locked, he can only watch as his strange little ally rushes into the fray. Suddenly, a strange vision overlays his sight, showing the ghostly silhouette of an unknown swordsman. The image sharpens, revealing the original master of this body, a memory or power awakening at the most critical moment. As the troll explodes, Ho-young wonders if it was some kind of explosion magic. He scans the battlefield, confused since he never heard of a mage in this village. A gruff voice suddenly calls out from behind him, "What are you looking around for?" He turns to find a dwarf standing over a goblin's head, which seems to whisper a name, Truye. "Hey, skinny, don't butt in," the dwarf warns, holding a strange, glowing object. Ho-young stares at the item in utter confusion, asking, "What is that?" "I hammered a nail in," the dwarf grunts, preparing to drive it all the way through. The rock-like object in his hand begins to glow with immense, unstable energy. With a mighty heave, he throws the makeshift bomb, unleashing a devastating explosion upon the trolls. The blast is so powerful, it instantly vaporizes a troll, leaving only its legs behind. He's left speechless, realizing the dwarf's weapon is a perfect, devastating grenade. "Incredible," he praises, asking if the blast is even stronger than their mage's magic. The dwarf proudly states his name is Burnable Runton, and a status window confirms he's an explosives expert dedicated to finding lost materials. With a flash of inspiration, Ho-young declares, "I've been searching for someone like you," leaving the dwarf utterly bewildered. But then, without a word of explanation, Ho-young suddenly draws his sword. The dwarf flinches back in fear, but Ho-young commands him, "Runton, don't move and stay still." In a blur of motion, he uses the dwarf's head as a launch pad, vaulting over him towards an unseen threat. He soars through the air, intercepting a massive troll just as it was about to crush the oblivious dwarf. With a furious battle cry, he raises his sword high, preparing to bring it down on the monster's head. His blade connects with a sickening crunch, cleaving straight through the troll's skull in a single, decisive strike. The troll chokes out the dwarf's name with its dying breath. "Geez." Annoyingly persistent, Ho-young mutters, his patience worn thin from the fight. He grips his sword tightly, the adrenaline of the life-or-death struggle slowly fading. With the last monster slain, he finally exhales, the grateful dwarf staring up at him in awe. The dwarf reaches for his savior's hand, only to see it stained with the grime of combat. "Your hands will get dirty," he warns, his heart aching with shame for ever doubting the man who saved him. But the victory is soured by the sound of a lone child crying for his mother in the ruins. The true devastation of the attack settles in as people desperately tend to the wounded and fallen. Suddenly, Luvia, the priestess, appears beside him, her tone weary. "Oh my, here we go again." She lets out a heavy sigh, hinting at a past tragedy that this scene painfully echoes. Desperate villagers surround Luvia, begging her to save their families from the brink of death. But Luvia coldly instructs them to gather every piece of the bodies, shocking the survivors who demand she revive the dead. Ho-young is forced to intervene, shouting that revival isn't simple and she alone doesn't have the power to save everyone. He empathizes with their loss, promising that paladins will arrive soon to perform a mass revival, a ritual he himself can't benefit from. "Until then, we will protect you," he declares, urging them to pray for the souls of the fallen. His loyal follower Bounal then shames the crowd, reminding them of the soldiers who risked their lives all night. His sharp words cut through their grief, leaving the villagers speechless and filled with shame. Their hearts changed, the people erupt in gratitude, triggering a level up for Ho-young's passive leadership skill. Later, inside his tent, a mysterious voice casually calls out his name. "You, was it Joran Tamer?" The dwarf he saved earlier stands before him, prompting a furious Lillian to defend her lord's honor while Ho-young simply demands to know who he is. A young maid named Peach proudly introduces herself as the handmaiden to the great Sir Joran Tamer, but the mysterious dwarf immediately mocks her title, sparking her fury as she insists, "Handmaiden." Ho-young dismisses the argument, ordering refreshments, only to be shocked when the dwarf refuses tobacco. The dwarf explains that tobacco smoke would make him insensitive to the smell of gunpowder, a crucial tool of his trade. He requests dark beer instead, and though Peach is annoyed, she obeys her master's command without question. Later, Ho-young formally apologizes for his subordinate's rudeness, inviting the dwarf to simply call him Joran. The dwarf's eyes narrow as he recognizes something special in the young lord, stating, "You have great potential." He then launches into a lecture about how a position of power doesn't change a person. It only reveals their true nature. Ho Young cuts to the chase, asking if the dwarf has considered his proposal, leaving the man in deep thought. Finally, the dwarf cryptically agrees, admitting that he's likely the one Ho Young is looking for. "I'll speak honestly," Ho Young begins, as the dwarf admits he's interested in joining him but has one major hesitation. The dwarf scoffs, revealing he doesn't fear monsters, he worries when there aren't any to fight. Ho Young laughs at his confidence, pressing him again. "Then why the hesitation?" "The issue isn't fear, but pride." The dwarf explains he can't stand being a subordinate and worries his temper would cause trouble. But Ho Young has a counteroffer, calmly stating, "I'm not trying to turn you into my vassal, Mr. Burnable." The dwarf is confused, but Ho Young's true proposal is revealed. "I want to bring you into the House of Tamer as an advisor." He wants to appoint him as a mentor for weaponry and cannon production, a position of respect, not servitude. Stunned, Burnable questions if it's a trick, but Ho Young clarifies he's only interested in his brilliant cannon designs. "Why would I make a distinguished engineer do grunt work?" Ho Young asks, knowing it would be a complete waste of talent. The word engineer strikes a deep chord, as the dwarf realizes no one has ever recognized him with such a title before. Ho Young's offer hangs in the air, describing the dwarf as a lunatic who'd blow up an entire mine. Just then, his maid Peach interrupts, bringing drinks and snacks to ease the tension. The dwarf's eyes light up, recognizing the rare black beer from Gallia, a sign of true respect. Ho Young smiles, realizing this gruff man knows how to treat people well, reminding him of a captain from his past life. With his pride satisfied, Burnable sets his one condition. "Could you keep serving me food and drink, like what I'm having right now?" The successful recruitment triggers a system notification, leveling his Inspire skill as he formally welcomes his new advisor. Sometime later, Ho Young is greeted on the road by a formidable-looking knight. "You've done well, Border Count." Ho Young tries to be casual, asking the deputy commander to speak comfortably with him. But the knight, Demis Ezev, refuses, and a glance at his status window reveals terrifying power. A dragon blade, rank knight with S-rank stats. Demis then coldly blames the scouts for the recent tragedy, while Ho Young can only marvel at the insane power of the man before him. The power scale of this world is absolute, with a dragon blade rank knight being strong enough to face a dragon. Ho Young knows recruiting a man this powerful is impossible. His loyalty to the king is just too strong. But instead of backing down, he turns the tables. "I am disappointed in you as well." The knight scoffs, questioning why someone so capable is wasting his time on a mere border posting. Ho Young dismisses him, claiming he has his circumstances, and that the holy knights can handle the rest. Suddenly, he's stopped cold as the knight reveals, "Wait, I also came as a royal messenger." In a flash, he sees the queen herself granting the border count a promotion and rewards. "A promotion?" Ho Young asks, stunned, as Demis confirms the king is pleased with his achievements. The knight's voice booms, forcing Ho Young to his knees to heed his majesty's decree. A heavy bag of gold is thrust into his hands as he nervously stammers that he isn't disappointed by the reward. Ho Young realizes the queen's decree is just a polite way of telling him to stay tucked away on the frontier. Meanwhile, a village ravaged by trolls reports that its residents, moved by his achievements, wish to follow him. But he coldly rejects the hopeful children, telling them, "No, you're far too young." He scans the rest of the survivors, disappointed that their stats are too low to be of any use. Just as he's about to leave, a timid voice calls out to the border count from behind. He turns with a weary expression, asking, "And you are?" A young woman introduces herself as Mayril, the weather mage he saved, revealing a status window with shocking potential. A system notification confirms a major encounter, and Ho Young realizes his choice to save the village was the right one. "Please," she begs, calling herself worthless, but he sees the immense gap between her current and maximum magic stats. Without another word, he firmly grasps her hand, accepting her into his ranks. "The Tamer territory welcomes you," he declares, as a system window confirms his S-rank tutorial completion. But upon arriving, he discovers his new domain is a desolate, muddy slum. The ground is littered with filth and decay, a grim reality check for the new lord. "Worse than I expected," he mutters, surveying the absolute ruin before him. He forces a smile, wondering where he could possibly begin to fix this mess. Suddenly, a new quest begins, and he confidently asks when the defense game starts, only to see a countdown from 10. His face pales as the numbers tick down 8, realizing the unit was seconds, not days. Why is this being so rushed? He panics, remembering the system promised him plenty of time to prepare for the first defense. The system cruelly explains his kindness, reduced his prep time, throwing him into an immediate goblin attack with his life on the line. A tactical map reveals the goblin vanguard is already on the move, giving him only 2 hours to reach the objective and prepare. With no time to waste, Ho Young immediately deploys Unit 8 to scout the incoming goblin threat. He then rallies his men, warning them that the enemy is heading for the East District office. But the people murmur in disbelief, questioning if this new upstart noble is just talking in his sleep. As their faith plummets, a system window confirms the realm's reformation level is dropping sharply. A local official confronts him directly, asking, "I heard you were a knight, not a mage, Lord. How do you know this?" The finance officer, Duner Ryom, can't comprehend why goblins would attack a complete ruin with nothing to gain. To silence the doubt, Ho Young stakes everything, declaring, "If the goblins don't appear, I'll stake my honor and step down as Lord." Pushed further, he doubles down on his insane gamble, offering his entire fortune if he's wrong. Finally, he turns to the anxious citizens, promising that he and his vassals alone will face the coming horde. His adjutant Lillian worries about his reckless promise, but he coolly admits, "It's fine. I don't have any property left anyway." Ho Young turns to his adjutant, asking if she too doubts him, but Lillian theorizes his monster-reforming powers may have granted him prophetic abilities. He inwardly panics, knowing his prophecy is just game knowledge from a status window he can't explain. But Lillian cuts through his anxiety with a simple, powerful declaration. "Because I believe in you, my lord." Moved by her absolute trust, he can only whisper her name as she asks for his command. Just then, a reformed monster scout dashes in, confirming the impossible. A horde of 50 armed goblins is on its way. Ho Young presses for more information, but the creature reveals it was blocked by a mysterious and unnatural black fog. Black fog? This new detail adds a layer of mystery to the attack that even his game knowledge didn't predict. Realizing the creature can't explain further, he turns to his secret weapon, asking the system to show him the monster's memories. He reasons that if he can communicate with monsters, sharing their vision should be possible, and the system immediately agrees. A new ability, Monster Skill Communion, unlocks just in time, a direct result of his clever tactics, proving his potential is growing faster than anyone imagined. "Now, close your eyes," Ho Young commands, using his new skill to dive into the monster's memories of the mysterious fog. But what he sees isn't a memory, it's a system interface that leaves him stunned. It's the fog of war from the game, a shadow that covers ununlocked areas, now made terrifyingly real. This system once forced players to explore diligently, never knowing the full layout of the battlefield from the start. Through the link, he feels an ominous aura and a foul smell, like a poison gas he shouldn't touch. A wave of primal fear washes over him, a sensation transmitted directly from the terrified monster scout. He suddenly realizes this isn't just fog, it's a high-level game mechanic known as an anti-spawn kill measure, a system designed to punish players by making the enemy's spawn point itself a deadly, impassable trap. But this only strengthens his resolve, realizing that clearing these defenses will make his territory stronger. "Everyone, follow me at a trot," and with his command, the counterattack begins, the wheels of war turning towards an unknown, game-like threat. The supply train, laden with armor and weapons, slowly makes its way forward. As soldiers march alongside, their spirits high, completely unaware of the trouble ahead. But with a sudden, sharp crack, the entire procession grinds to a halt. "Ugh, what's wrong with this thing? It's not moving." Ho Young shouts in frustration. He dismounts, scolding his men for their clumsy loading before taking charge himself. Yet even with his leadership, their combined effort to fix the busted axle fails completely. Watching from the side, the dwarf Bernabal scoffs at their incompetence, wondering, how can they be so clumsy? He shakes his head as the humans continue to struggle, their straining efforts utterly pathetic. "Why are you struggling like fools when there's a dwarf right here?" he finally roars, stepping in. And just like that, with a simple touch, he fixes the problem, leaving everyone stunned by his skill. The dwarf's solution wasn't just a repair, but a tactical upgrade centered on a single wheel. "You're planning on using this cart for a barricade, are ye?" Bernabal asks, already one step ahead. He reveals a genius tactic. Simply remove the front wheel to keep the cart from rolling. The wheel was also designed to be easily detached and used as a makeshift shield in battle. Ho Young is stunned by the dwarf's ingenuity, realizing he's turned a simple cart into a battle wagon. With this new advantage, he orders his forces to move out, splitting them into 2 strategic groups. He knows concentrating their forces is risky. If their defense is broken even once, it's all over. A tactical map reveals the perfect choke point, a long hill, that could give his ranged units a massive advantage. But his archers can't climb the slippery terrain. A frustrating obstacle he suspects is a system-level debuff. Just then, the weather mage Meryl steps forward, nervously asking, "Lord, can I really help?" Ho Young reassures the nervous mage, telling her to focus only on her magic. But at the mention of a forest, Meryl has a sudden, game-changing realization about her own power. Acting on a hunch, Ho Young gives his own horse to a soldier, shouting, "Carry me." He then mounts a deer-like monster, ordering Unit 8 to follow him up the impossible hill. To his shock, the creature begins scaling the steep cliff face with impossible ease. The Mandragorani calmly explains that its feet are made for running through forests and over hills. Ho Young dryly cuts it off, already aware of what its feet look like from his past life. With the terrain problem solved, he triumphantly orders his archers to mount the creatures and ascend. But his followers erupt in protest, with the dwarf screaming, "Joran, have you lost your mind?" He simply closes his eyes, ignoring their disbelief as he commits to his insane plan. Ignoring his men's protests, Ho Young screams, "Pacify," forcing the wild creatures to obey his insane command. Suddenly, a system window appears, announcing the first wave will begin in just 10 seconds. Right on cue, a massive horde of red-eyed goblins swarms out from the forest below. But from his high ground, Ho Young gives a bizarre order. "Archers, your target is not the vanguard, but the ranks behind them." The goblins at the front are left completely bewildered, unable to understand why they aren't being attacked. From their impossible vantage point, his archers take aim, and on the command, "Fire," the ambush is sprung. A deadly volley of arrows soars through the air, aimed perfectly at the enemy's unsuspecting rear. The projectiles find their mark, striking the goblins from behind and sowing instant chaos within their ranks. Their formation completely collapses as the panicked monsters trample each other, screaming, "Get out of the way!" With the enemy in disarray, he shouts, "Baunil, take out the ones that are stubbornly trying to push forward first." Baunil confidently accepts the order, declaring, "Leave it to me," as he prepares to act. He unleashes a barrage of stones, striking the goblins with brutal precision and stunning the front line. With a makeshift slingshot, he continues his relentless assault, targeting the most aggressive monsters. As the goblins stare up in rage, a new command rings out. "Spearmen, to your positions." But their path forward is completely blocked by a barricade of overturned carts, leaving them trapped and confused. Desperate, the horde abandons the path and begins a frantic, chaotic scramble up the steep cliff face. The spearmen wait at the top, creating a deadly wall of steel that impales the first climbers. The monsters lose their footing on the treacherous rocks, their desperate assault turning into a slaughter. But just as the tide turns, Ho Young gives a shocking order that freezes his own men. "Cease fire." When Baunil asks if he should stop, Ho Young coolly tells him to continue, only for the scout to realize he's completely out of ammo. With his primary assault over, Ho Young issues a bizarre new order to gather stones while riding a pacified monster. The goblins ignore the lull, using their own bodies as a gruesome ladder to swarm up the cliff face. But Ho Young refuses to let them advance, shouting, "Unit 8, let's go down," and leading the charge himself. Lillian watches in awe, remarking that for someone who forgot mounted combat, he fights remarkably well on a monster's back. With a fierce battle cry, he swings his sword, fully committing to this strange new form of swordsmanship. She notes his aura handling has become proficient, to which he cheekily replies he had a fine disciple in her. He then wheels his mount around, leading his unit to the opposite side in a shocking tactical shift. Gripping the antlers of his strange steed, his sheer presence seems to radiate an overwhelming pressure. The goblins finally break, one screaming in terror. There's a crazy human riding around on a Mandragorani. Panic spreads as the once unstoppable horde begins to quietly slink away in defeat. The last goblin looks up in confusion, barely uttering a sound before a flash of golden light cuts through the battlefield. In the aftermath, a much larger goblin stands over the bodies of its fallen kin. "What is that thing now?" Ho Young mutters, sensing a shift in power. A system alert confirms his fears as the Goblin Poison Squad leader appears. He instantly recognizes the mid-boss, panicking. Why is he already here? The creature's stats confirm it's on a completely different level from the others. He demands an explanation from the system, which reveals his own performance lowered the stage's difficulty. "Then shouldn't you be giving me extra rewards?" he yells, only to learn the quest has variable difficulty. As he faces the empowered enemy, the system explains that with higher difficulty comes greater rewards. "You should have told me that in advance," he grumbles, realizing his success has only made things harder. The system condescendingly explains it withheld information for his own good, making Ho Young question, "Are you subtly mocking me?" Facing the towering mid-boss, he considers a reckless gamble, a one-on-one duel for a quick victory, but he instantly dismisses the idea as too risky, instead snapping a smaller goblin's arm with brutal efficiency. Changing tactics, He roars a new command. Archers, aim for the big one. Concentrated fire. A deadly volley of arrows soars through the air, aimed directly at the goblin leader's heart. In a shocking display of power, the monster effortlessly parries the entire barrage with just its gauntlet. Is that parry for real? Ho Young yells in disbelief as Bowunal readies his own attack. The goblin boss finally brandishes its massive, oar-like weapon, revealing its true threat. But even a common goblin proves impossibly skilled, deflecting Bowunal's stone projectile with one of its own. Ho Young can only stare up in utter shock, realizing the power scaling of this fight is completely broken. Enraged, Bowunal hurls another stone with all his might, but the goblin leader effortlessly swats it aside, forcing Bowunal to apologize. I'm sorry, my lord. This was my fault. Ho Young remains unfazed, ordering him, keep throwing them. Even if we just bind his legs, that will be enough. He then pivots to a desperate new strategy, shouting for Unit 16 to bring the weather mage Mayral. As Mayral is escorted onto the chaotic battlefield, she looks completely lost and out of place. Her eyes widen in confusion, clearly wondering what a non-combat mage is supposed to do against such a monster. Startled by his voice, she jumps and stammers, "Ooh, did you call for me?" Ho Young calmly gives her a simple, yet critical command. "Yeah, Mayral, send a strong gust toward that big guy." She gathers all her focus with a shout, but the magic that manifests is disappointingly weak. While Ho Young stares in disbelief, the mage can only sob an apology for her utter failure. As Mayral sobs, "I guess I really am no help," Ho Young gently pats her head, refusing to give up on her. He knows that in this world, power isn't fixed. Like a roll of a 2-0-sided die, luck can change everything. But unlike a game with a hard cap, real-world variables like emotion can drastically alter the outcome. Overwhelmed by her failure, the young mage struggles to hold back her tears, feeling completely useless. Ho Young then reveals a critical secret. Her magic stat ranges from 1 to 111, and her power is directly tied to her confidence. "You're scared, right?" he asks calmly. Understanding that her fear is a natural response to the chaos of war, he lowers the stakes, asking not for a typhoon, but just a simple gust of wind aimed at the monster's head. She points out the flaw in his praise. There are only 2 mages, but his logic is unshakable. "That just makes you cooler," he declares. Completely irreplaceable, and with newfound resolve, she shouts, "I'll try again." Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind begins to swirl violently around her staff, her true potential finally awakening. With a final cry, the young mage unleashes an unbelievable torrent of power from her staff. Even Ho Young is stunned, thinking, "Holy, that wind stream is insane." As it tears across the battlefield, the goblin horde is thrown into chaos, completely unprepared for the sudden, violent gale. "What's with this sudden wind?" Bowunal shouts, caught in the unexpected magical storm. But he quickly recovers, using the chaos as cover to sprint towards the enemy line. A goblin screams as a projectile smashes directly into its face with brutal force. Suddenly, rocks begin to rain down from the sky, targeting the disoriented monsters. The barrage is merciless, crushing skulls and shattering the goblins' formation completely. Their bodies are sent flying like ragdolls, helplessly tossed about by the combined assault. "Bonal, throw the pouch now," Ho Young commands, revealing the perfectly executed pincer attack. On Ho Young's command, Bowunal hurls the mysterious pouch into the air. It explodes, showering the disoriented goblins in a thick, clinging powder. Their leader screams for them to bunch up and keep their heads down, a fatal mistake. From the clifftop, Ho Young and Mayral watch the enemy's formation tighten perfectly. "Blowing them away is too much for me," Mayral pants, but Ho Young reassures her it was more than enough. "They've gathered tightly," he smirks. "That angle is perfect." He calls out to Mr. Burnable, who grumbles about being disturbed from his work. With a sharp click, Ho Young activates a communication device on his chest. "Let's go," he declares with a chilling grin. "Time to show the goblins how scary artillery is." A massive cannon is revealed, leaving Mayral utterly speechless at the true scale of his plan. Ho Young calmly introduces a weapon Mayral has never seen before, a mortar. He then reveals its power source is a priceless primal magic stone, something stronger than any magic staff. He casually mentions he got it as a reward, a forgotten prize that will now change the entire battlefield. Unlike normal magic stones, its attribute can be chosen by the owner, a game-changing advantage from his past life. "Status window," he commands with a smirk. "Set it up like we discussed before." The stone glows, as its attribute is locked to explosive propulsion, fitting perfectly into Burnabal's design. But the old craftsman reveals that's not the only thing that fits, gesturing to the massive ammunition. Together, they heave the perfectly spherical projectile, a stone bowling ball made for destruction. Ho Young grins, impressed that the craftsman carved it round just like he said. Perfect. Let's send it, he roars as a new passive skill, Nation of Artillery, activates for the first time. When asked to name his new weapon, Ho Young smirks, dubbing it the Impact Cannon. The system confirms the Mana Stone is charged, with a simple, deadly keyword, fire. Status window, he commands. Let me adjust the Mana Stone's power from 1 to 100. A targeting HUD appears, displaying simulated trajectories for different power levels, promising precision. Seeing the goblin horde approach, he makes his decision and roars. All right, this time we go with power 15. Fire. Deep within the cannon, the heart-shaped Mana Stone pulses with an overwhelming blue light. A terrifying surge of red energy gathers at the muzzle, ready to unleash absolute destruction. As his soldiers cry out in shock at the sound, the cannon finally unleashes its payload. The projectile lands with a thud, right in the center of the bewildered goblin formation. Suddenly, a massive pillar of water erupts from the ground, completely obliterating the vanguard. Ho Young curses under his breath, realizing the goblin captain somehow dodged the first shot. But Burnaball is completely stunned by the weapon's power, exclaiming, Joran, this thing is legit. It's exactly like you said. Mr. Burnaball, are you saying you didn't trust me? Ho Young teases, but the dwarf reaffirms his absolute loyalty. With the test over, Ho Young's expression turns deadly serious as he commands, Mr. Burnaball, hand me a bomb. As they prepare to load the next round, the craftsman confidently assures him, don't you worry. Ho Young quickly stops him from hammering the shell, explaining that with Mana Stones, such brute force is no longer needed. He then unleashes the cannon's true potential, roaring. This time, power 20, fire. The goblin captain can only look up in sheer terror as the second projectile screams down from the sky. A devastating explosion of fire and shrapnel erupts, engulfing the entire goblin formation in an instant. In the aftermath, nothing remains but smoke and the scattered, unrecognizable remains of the once mighty vanguard. The army's only mage soldier stares in awe, questioning the very nature of his lord's impossible power. Even the stubborn craftsman, Burnaball, is forced to admit that Joran was right all along. A few days ago, Ho Young's radical ideas for ranged warfare were met with pure scorn and disbelief. Burnaball had scoffed, confident that his own brute strength was more than enough to win any battle. But Ho Young patiently explained the limits of throwing bombs by hand, a slow and inefficient method. It was then Burnaball realized the truth. A cannon offered firepower he could never match, admitting I was being a stubborn fool. Snapped back to the present, Ho Young urges him on, shouting that they need to smash the other side now. Meanwhile, on the ground, Adjutant Lillian holds the line with a fierce battle cry, her spear ready. A monstrous goblin charges forward, its roar echoing across the blood-soaked battlefield. But Lillian's eyes burn with cold resolve, unflinching in the face of the oncoming horde. Lillian holds the line, her polearm clashing violently against a goblin's axe as the front line struggles. But just as the monsters press their advantage, they're ruthlessly cut down from behind by a coordinated pincer attack. Ho Young smirks at Lillian's prowess, confidently stating, I told you, didn't I? We're more than enough on our own. He explains that against a swarm there's no honor, only brutal efficiency, a tactic he bluntly calls dogpiling. When Lillian reminds him he was their teacher, he quickly changes the subject, shouting, Anyway, everyone, listen up, prepare for cover. He warns them that a new weapon is coming, and its shards will fly everywhere, so they must brace themselves. The soldiers murmur in confusion, wondering if he means the massive explosion that rocked the left flank earlier. Annoyed by their hesitation, Ho Young roars for them to respond, and Lillian immediately snaps them to attention with a sharp, Yes, sir. She can't help but find his new focus on weapons strange, but her trust in their lord remains absolute. At that moment, Burnaball arrives with a massive, perfectly crafted cannonball, announcing, Jor, it's done. Burnaball presents the perfect shell, but is confused by the strange hole drilled into its surface. With a chilling grin, Ho Young compares it to a gruesome dwarven dish where one animal is stuffed inside another and roasted. The craftsman instantly understands the reference, sweating as he pictures the traditional Tadaji feast. We're going to cook the goblins the same way, Ho Young reveals, explaining his plan to put a bomb inside the shell. Burnaball is utterly horrified, calling his lord completely crazy for conceiving such a twisted weapon. But this madness is rooted in history, a time-fused shrapnel bomb from his past life's military education. Ho Young then excitedly orders Burnaball to drill even more irregular holes to make the shrapnel effect more devastating. The true secret to this weapon, however, isn't the shell but its power source, a legendary primal magic stone. Unlike normal stones that need constant recharging, This artifact regenerates its own mana, acting as a limitless battery. As Ho Young smugly compares its quality to premium coffee, his soldiers lie waiting, wondering how much longer they must endure this. From afar, Ho Young taunts the confused goblins who find only empty armor, telling them to stay like that just a bit longer. Believing the humans have fled in terror, the goblin leader roars for his horde to charge forward without hesitation. But this is all part of the plan. As Ho Young calculates the precise power needed to launch the shell without it exploding on impact, he draws upon the immense, self-regenerating energy of the primal magic stone, the key to his entire strategy. With a determined shout, he gives the command to fire the mortar at a mere power 10. The massive weapon roars to life, launching its deadly payload into the sky. A single, ominous shell soars through the air, heading straight for the goblin army. The goblins spot the projectile, screaming, "It's a catapult! Everyone dodge!" as they scramble for cover. But the shell lands with a dull thud, its trajectory comically slow and its aim seemingly terrible, causing the goblins to mock their enemies' incompetence. As they crowd around the dud, planning to use it against the humans, they fall right into Ho Young's trap, gathering exactly where he wanted them. The shell was never meant to explode mid-air. It was designed for a delayed detonation triggered by the impact. Suddenly, the trap springs as the shell erupts in a cataclysmic blast, engulfing the unsuspecting goblins in fire. The shockwave tears through their ranks, sending bodies flying as the battlefield is instantly cleared. A system notification confirms his level up, and with a confident smirk, Ho Young declares, "All right, one more time." But as he prepares to reload, he notices the immense force has already dented the cannon's barrel. He quickly calls for his expert craftsman, but Burnable grumbles, "You told me to chip stones and now you're calling me again." With no time to waste, Ho Young orders his special cavalry unit to charge into the fray. He knows they must finish the first wave quickly, because if the second wave arrives it will be a disaster. He recalls the system's advice. The faster they eliminate the enemy, the higher their final grade will be. With his sword raised high, he gives the final, ruthless command to his charging forces: destroy anyone who resists. His cavalry cuts through the goblin horde with ruthless efficiency. But Ho Young steps forward, confronting the remaining monsters alone. The terrified goblins can only stammer in fear, trying to rally themselves. He smirks, offering them a chance at mercy. "Those who value their lives, drop your weapons, I'll spare you." They think he's insane, screeching that it must be a lie. But their hesitation reveals they have some intelligence, a potential he can exploit. He taunts them, asking if their own taskmaster goblin would ever let them go. His smile turns sinister as he lays out their three options: resist and die, flee and die, or follow him to an easy life. Suddenly, his own tamed monsters appear, shouting, "Do what master says." The goblins are utterly shocked. Seeing monsters side with a human convinces them that surrender is their only option. With his new area pacification skill, he decides to simply number his new goblin recruits one by one. The terrified creatures flinch in unison, now completely under his control. When a soldier warns of betrayal, he scoffs with absolute confidence. They don't have the guts for that. He then surveys the battlefield, disturbed that unlike in a game, the bodies of the dead don't just disappear. Turning to his new minions, he asks if they would feel weird fighting their own kind. The goblins quickly confirm they would never want to fight other goblins, only their cruel taskmaster. A dark, calculating smile spreads across his face as he realizes their perfect new purpose. The scene then shifts to a quiet clearing away from the main battle. There, he stands before the recruited goblins, who are now gathered around the corpses of their fallen brethren. "Move them quickly," he commands, promising rest only after they've finished their grim task. The newly recruited goblin salutes sharply, shouting his understanding of the grim new task. His brethren immediately get to work, asking where to stack the bodies of their fallen kin. This was a critical problem, as the enemy had previously used their own dead as shields and ramps to breach the defenses. Ho Young contemplates the grim reality that, unlike in a game, these corpses could be used by a warlock to raise an undead army. A wicked smile crosses his face as he comes to a dark conclusion. "Then I'll just make use of the corpses myself." He knew the goblins had no qualms about handling their own dead, even eating those they despised. He's slightly disturbed to learn this is just their culture, a grim but effective way to avoid attracting other monsters. But he quickly sees the genius of it, realizing it solves his food, sanitation, and disposal problems all at once. With that gruesome logistical issue solved, his focus shifts back to the impending battle. He issues new orders with cold efficiency, preparing his forces for the second wave, which is only 70 minutes away. A weary soldier questions the priestess's methods, asking, "My injury is in my foot, so why do you keep kneading my thigh?" Luvia smirks, telling him to relax and let her handle his body, as she's just soothing the tense muscles. Meanwhile, the troops are served a special tea made from mandragorani bee leaves to help them recover. The devoted maid Peach follows up with cookies made from the very same ingredient, a gentle smile on her face. The soldiers are shocked, noting that while the cook's tea was bitter, Peach's tastes like sweet honey water. A system window confirms their fatigue is greatly reduced as Peach distributes towels soaked in cooling potions. Ho Young watches with satisfaction, impressed by her high charm stat and deciding she deserves a raise for her incredible work. Nearby, soldiers playfully tease a mage for sweating, who threatens to cast a silence spell on them for their cheek. Their commander appears, remarking how happy they all look now compared to the half-dead soldiers he first met. With renewed spirits, they all agree. Guarding the frontier is rewarding, sir. Peach's eyes narrow with a hidden, unwavering resolve. She declares that no matter how hard the work is, she doesn't mind at all. Her true motive is revealed with a greedy glint in her eyes: to become the master's wife and lady of the territory. Nearby, the mage Meryl watches her walk away, sensing the strange, fiery ambition radiating from the maid. Suddenly, Meryl seems to have an idea, gasping as she turns with newfound purpose. She nervously approaches her lord, Ho Young, calling out to get his attention. "How is my magic?" she asks, hoping for praise but bracing for an honest answer. But his response is brutal and direct. "To be honest, it wasn't quite up to my expectations." The words hit her like a physical blow, her mind reeling in pure shock. Her spirit completely shatters as she whispers, "I'm sorry I didn't want to disappoint my lord." But Ho Young's harsh words were a test, as he smiles and reveals his true assessment. "It exceeded my expectations." Meryl's despair instantly vanishes, her face lighting up as she stammers, "Really?" He calls her the best weather mage in the territory, causing her to blush with overwhelming gratitude. Filled with a new fire, she grips her staff and vows, "I'll work hard from now on." As she leaves, Ho Young turns his attention to his adjutant, deciding to check if Lillian is resting. But far from resting, a storm is brewing in a secluded training ground. His adjutant Lillian stands ready, her polearm held with deadly purpose. Her eyes narrow with lethal focus, locking onto her unseen target. With a powerful war cry, she lunges forward, her weapon blazing with a golden aura. The strike lands with devastating force, impaling a goblin dummy and showcasing her terrifying power. Ho Young finds his adjutant Lillian, who turns with a sharp, focused gaze. Riding his mount, he approaches her, sarcastically noting, "Looks like you're completely uninjured, thankfully." He questions why she's exerting herself, but she coldly retorts that his order doesn't apply to her. "Hey, you've gotten quite cheeky lately," he says. But she quickly relents, agreeing to rest as instructed. But then she turns the tables, insisting he must also rest, since it hasn't been long since his own resurrection. He finally agrees that rest is a part of battle, much to the delight of his deer-like mount. Plucking a leaf from his mount's antlers, he takes a thoughtful bite. He realizes the leaf is a powerful item for restoring vitality, already planning to sell it as a local specialty. Lillian's attention shifts to the captured goblins now being used as laborers, questioning if this is his long-term plan. Of course, he confirms with a confident smirk, revealing he arranged for their enemies to serve them from the start. Lillian scoffs at the idea of needing monster help, firmly stating, "No, I do not need it." But Ho Young immediately calls out her hypocrisy, pointing to the monster-based tea she's currently chugging. Flustered, she argues that goblins are untrustworthy burdens, useful only as arrow fodder at best. "Why would we use them as meat shields?" he retorts, explaining their perfect, low-maintenance labor for cleaning up corpses. He confidently tells her to rest, assuring her the next assault will be nothing more than a simple goblin swarm. But just as he speaks, a terrifying system alert flashes across his vision. Negative effect occurred. Suddenly, a menacing presence stirs from deep within the dark forest. The sound grows louder, an ominous cry echoing through the trees as something approaches. From the shadows emerges a horde of elite goblins, their crimson eyes glowing with malice. "I thought I could finally catch my breath," he mutters, sarcastically thanking the system for the last-second warning. "Can't be helped," he grimly accepts, realizing the fight is unavoidable. Leaping into action, he commands his forces. "Move now, Unit B. Head to the left attack route as fast as possible." But these new goblin shield-bearers and archers are far more troublesome than expected. The weak creatures that once collapsed from a single spear thrust are gone. Now, only stronger and more precise attacks can bring them down. The archers even demonstrate terrifying tactics, shooting through the gaps in their own shield wall. A crimson-eyed goblin takes aim, loosing an arrow with deadly precision. And while their own bows are crude, the crossbows they've stolen from humans are dangerously effective. A volley of stolen arrows cuts through the sky, heading straight for the defenders. Ho Young watches them approach, knowing that even a single arrow in a vital spot means certain death. Ho Young realizes the goblins' newfound ranged tactics are a complete nightmare, but his own forces are struggling, their arrows bouncing harmlessly off the goblin shield wall. "Try blocking this," Bowunal yells, unleashing a furious attack of his own. Yet even his powerful sling stones simply ricochet off their reinforced defenses. Ho Young seethes, realizing this feels less like a challenge and more like an impossible stage. A cavalry charge could break them, but he'd have to destroy his own hard-built barricade. He breaks into a cold sweat, cursing his own strategic oversight in building the defenses. Just then, a system warning screams of an incoming enemy volley as the goblins take aim. In perfect unison, the entire goblin horde unleashes a storm of arrows. A black cloud of death fills the sky, raining down on the helpless defenders. "Damn it," Ho Young cries, completely helpless under the rain of death. But a voice cuts through the chaos, pleading, "O wind, break those wicked fletchings." Meryl thrusts her hand forward, unleashing a torrent of magical energy. A powerful gale suddenly sweeps across the battlefield, intercepting the entire arrow volley. His soldiers watch in stunned silence, shouting that the arrows are turning back. The goblins can only watch in horror as their own attack is sent hurtling back towards them. Their shields absorb most of the impact, but the surprise assault shatters their perfect formation. Yet Meryl sees only failure, her eyes filled with disappointment at the outcome. "I'm sorry," she whispers, believing she wasn't strong enough to be of any real help. But Ho Young praises her, declaring that blocking the volley and wasting their arrows was an incredible, tide-turning achievement. With the weapon repair complete, Bernabal proudly announces the artillery is fixed, and he's brought more of his crazy stuff. A wicked grin spreads across Ho Young's face as he prepares to have some fun with the newly repaired cannon. He immediately unleashes another thunderous blast toward the goblin horde. But this time, the bomb's killing power is drastically reduced, as the goblin's shield wall absorbs most of the fragments. Unfazed, he notes their shields are worn out and calls for the next shell, ready to press the attack. The new projectile is handed over, looking strangely like a bowling ball, a thought that makes him hesitate. Wait, bowling? He suddenly realizes, a spark of insane inspiration flashing in his mind. A wicked smile returns as he declares his new plan. "Let's use the goblins as pins and go bowling." His artillery master skill activates, locking the cannon's angle for a perfectly straight shot. And with a deafening roar, the cannon fires, sending the solid sphere hurtling toward the goblin formation. The solid sphere tears through the air, a spinning projectile of pure kinetic energy. The goblins can only look up in shock, their crude wall about to be utterly shattered. It smashes through their formation, sending bodies and splintered wood flying in a chaotic blast. "Strike," he declares with a wicked grin. "If they block, just blow them away along with the shields." His grim strategy worked perfectly, using piled corpses to create a narrow kill zone with no escape. "That's taken care of," he says, turning to a stunned Meryl. "Let's go together." He pulls her along, insisting, "Hurry and get on behind me," as she panics at riding a monster again. Without a moment's hesitation, they dash off towards the other flank of the battle. They move at a blistering pace, leaving the sounds of the cannon behind them. "Unit 8 is a bit fast, but you'll be fine," he reassures a nauseous Meryl, already planning to find Lillian. Arriving at the other flank, Ho Young immediately calls out to his loyal adjutant, asking for a status report. But instead of an answer, he gets a panicked scream. "My lord, it's dangerous." A heartbeat later, the sky is blotted out by a lethal volley of goblin arrows. With no time to think, he grabs Meryl and pulls her behind him, shielding her as the projectiles rain down. He holds her close, a lone bastion against the storm of death closing in around them. While Meryl freezes in terror, Ho Young knows he must protect her and decides to unleash his aura for the first time. He struggles to wrap the unstable purple energy around them both, knowing it's their only chance. Watching from afar, a furious Lillian realizes her lord is risking everything for this girl and decides she must intervene. Her hand tightens on her polearm as a fierce, crimson energy begins to crackle to life. In a flash of red light, she prepares to unleash her own hidden power to save him. With a furious cry, Lillian unleashes a torrent of crimson energy, leaping into the fray. Her power slices through the air, a fiery blur that intercepts the incoming storm of death. "Phew, you saved me, Lillian." Ho Young sighs in relief, holding Meryl close. He checks on the terrified mage, but she's more worried about him, asking if he's hurt anywhere. But from Lillian's perspective, this tender moment only fuels her seething, silent rage. She takes a heavy, deliberate step forward, intent on breaking them apart. Shoving Meryl aside, she coldly commands, "Step back, you're in the way." Ho Young is left utterly confused, wondering why his adjutant is glaring at him with pure killing intent. Meanwhile, the battle has turned grim as the goblins have stopped advancing, opting for an endless barrage of arrows. Battle Mage Seacoop struggles to maintain a barrier, but Ho Young knows his low mana pool means it's about to shatter. Ho Young realizes that, while he can survive the arrow storm, his unprotected soldiers are facing certain death. His attention then shifts to the spear Lillian threw, noticing something strange about it. He tries to pull the weapon out himself, but it's stuck fast, making him curse its stubbornness. "Allow me," Lillian says condescendingly, plucking her spear from the ground with absolutely no effort. She explains it's not his weakness, but the fact that the spear is still saturated with her powerful aura. Normally, aura loaded into a thrown weapon quickly disperses after leaving the user's body. But in her desperate rush to save him, Lillian had poured an immense amount of her power into the spear. As she reclaims the glowing energy, Ho Young watches, a critical piece of information clicking into place. A game-changing idea suddenly strikes him. He could apply that very same principle to the mortar. He immediately turns and commands, "Meryl, summon the wind one more time, just enough to protect our allies." "My mana is quite depleted," Meryl admits, but she still agrees to try for her lord. She knows she lacks the raw power to simply blow the goblins away. Instead, she focuses every last drop of her energy on a single command, to protect her allies. A sudden gale whips across the battlefield, catching the frontline soldiers completely by surprise. The wind solidifies into an invisible wall, deflecting the entire volley of goblin arrows. Enraged that their primary tactic has been nullified, the goblin leader's eyes burn with fury. "Charge!" it screams, leading the entire horde in a desperate, all-out assault on the walls. But this is exactly what Ho Young was waiting for, a confident smirk spreading across his face. "They're finally rushing in," he commands, ordering Seacoop to drop the magical barrier. The mage is stunned, protesting the insane order to lower their only defense against the incoming wave. Ho Young smirks, revealing he knows the complex and costly mechanics of mana barriers. "How on earth do you know that?" the mage stammers, completely baffled by the Lord's impossible knowledge. But Ho Young has a different plan, ordering him not to dissolve the barrier, but to reshape it into a weapon. Seacoop protests, explaining that a simple mana shell already failed to break through the goblin's impenetrable shield wall. Ho Young insists this one will be different, solid and sharp, but the mage argues it would be too heavy and slow to launch. Just then, a strange fanged creature arrives, dragging the massive mortar cannon onto the battlefield. Ho Young points to the cannon's barrel, giving a simple command. "Just make it fit snugly inside here." He grins, explaining that as for firepower, the mortar will handle everything. The mage's eyes widen in understanding as the insane, brilliant strategy finally clicks into place. A perfectly formed, solid mana projectile materializes, the key to turning the tide of this impossible war. Ho Young mocks the mage's weakness, telling him to simply pick up the shell and load it by hand. Seacoop reluctantly places his hands on the dense, solidified mana projectile, feeling its immense weight. The system confirms the shell is a perfect match, as the Nation of Artillery skill prepares to fire in 5 seconds. For the final step, Ho Young wraps the barrel in his own aura to stabilize the trajectory and maximize the firepower. The cannon erupts, launching the aura-infused mana projectile with a blinding flash of purple energy. The goblins huddle behind their shield wall, smugly believing they can block any mere cannonball. "But no one blocks a missile," he declares, as the shot shatters their defenses in a cataclysmic blast. Their entire front line is instantly vaporized, leaving nothing but a swirling vortex of smoke and dust. The surviving goblins can only stare in absolute terror at the overwhelming power that just erased their comrades. Stunned, Seacoop reports that not even most mid-tier mages could ever replicate this impossible level of force. "Why waste precious mana?" Ho Young smirks, "when you can just fire it like this?" As his mage finally understands the terrifying power of artillery, Ho Young simply orders him to load the next round. The second wave was a massacre. The goblins' tight formations made them perfect targets for the oversized mana projectiles. But just as victory seemed certain, the third wave arrived, bringing with it a shocking new threat. The rare, powerful enforcer leaders were suddenly spawning at an impossible rate, 1 for every 5 goblins. "This difficulty setting is trash," Ho Young rages, realizing the system is spawning mid-bosses like common mobs. His advantage crumbles as his mage, Seacoop, collapses, completely drained of mana and unable to create more projectiles. With no other choice, Ho Young is forced to revert to firing simple stone shells, hoping to thin their numbers. The crude bombardment still finds its mark, tearing through the weaker goblins at the front. But the enforcer leaders reveal a horrifying new tactic, using their own kind as living meat shields to nullify the damage. This game is seriously trash. Ho Young seethes, forced to devise another method on the fly. His new strategy is simple: a pinpoint strike targeting only the powerful enforcer leaders. Suddenly, a faint rustling from the nearby bushes breaks his concentration. He turns, confused by the unexpected sound from behind his own lines. But a confident smirk spreads across his face as a new, daring idea takes root. Yeah, let's try it. He immediately orders Meryl to create a thick fog and tells Bawunal to prepare dust pouches to blind the enemy. Then, he points to a creature so small he almost forgot it existed. Now it's your turn, Gremlin Unit Number 1. The Gremlin, a small monster with excellent stealth abilities, snaps to attention, awaiting its command. Its mission is clear: ignore the common goblins and focus solely on rendering the leaders unable to fight. But a critical weakness remains: the Gremlin is fast but incredibly fragile, and could be crushed in an instant. Ho Young snaps his fingers, revealing an extraordinary plan to infiltrate the enemy ranks and disrupt them from within. First, he enhances the Gremlin's natural stealth by covering the tiny creature in camouflage powder. Then, in a truly insane move, the Gremlin is loaded directly into the mortar, cushioned by sandbags. With a command to fire, the cannon launches the tiny assassin at low power to ensure its survival. As it soars through the air, the sandbags burst, showering the battlefield and concealing its approach. The goblin leaders are instantly blinded and disoriented, crying out in confusion as sand fills their eyes. Combined with the fog, this creates the perfect hazy environment for the Gremlin to maximize its stealth. It's a perfect success. The creature is now a silent, invisible predator, with its glowing eyes locked on its targets. Before the goblin can even react, the Gremlin strikes, gouging out the leader's eyes with blinding speed. The leader collapses, screaming in agony as blood pours from its face, the assassination a complete success. Blinded and confused, the low-intelligence goblins have no idea what's happening as the Gremlin strikes. One by one, the enforcer leaders are slaughtered in a bloody flash, the system announcing their defeat. Only after most of their commanders are dead do the goblins finally spot the tiny assassin in their midst. But capturing the swift creature is impossible, forcing the panicked goblins to sound a full retreat. Seeing his chance, Ho Young commands his troops, snipe the goblins and help the Gremlin retreat. Consumed by rage, the remaining leaders charge blindly forward, becoming easy prey for the waiting soldiers. An arrow strikes true from an unseen angle, a deadly lesson to pay attention below next time. Ho Young praises Bawunal for a job well done, promising a bonus for another important task. But Bawunal refuses payment, asking only for his orders and what he needs to do next. He's handed 2 glowing bomb stones, with strict instructions to throw them only on the signal. Ho Young realizes the right flank is in trouble, suspecting Lillian is being overwhelmed by enforcer leaders. Just then, his loyal monster Ronnie announces that all preparations are finally complete. Good. Let's head to the right flank barricade, he commands, rushing towards the unfolding chaos. And just as he predicted, the situation on the right attack route was dire. A fierce battle was already raging, with a massive horde of goblins swarming the defenses. Terrified of another ambush, the few surviving overseers whip their own troops forward. Keep moving, damn it, they roar, desperately driving the goblins to their absolute limit. The human soldiers can only watch in horror as the monstrous wave approaches. But among them, the priestess Luvia begins a solemn prayer. O Hariad, you who looks over the lowest of us, please, protect the brave warriors on the front lines, she pleads, as a brilliant divine light erupts from her body. Her divine light forms a barrier as soldiers roar. Priestess Rubia is protecting us. Charge. Inspired, Adjutant Lillian leaps into the fray, her polearm glowing with an unstoppable energy. She effortlessly carves through the goblin ranks, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. Standing amidst the carnage, Lillian readies herself for the next wave of monsters. Luvia calmly asks from the back lines, "Don't you need a shield too, Captain Lillian?" But Lillian scoffs at the offer, declaring her aura alone is more than enough protection. Watching from a distance, Ho Young sighs in relief that they're holding their own for now. His relief is short-lived, however, as he realizes just how many enemies are still left. Suddenly, a terrifying notification appears. The final wave begins in just 30 minutes. Realizing time is out, he reveals his trump card. Pack flammable minerals into the blast. Cannon. Burnable explodes in disbelief. Are you serious? Planning a cavalry charge with a mandragora deer? But Ho Young just smiles, explaining he has his reasons since warhorses can't make it up the hill. The master craftsman sighs in utter exasperation, already dreading what comes next. Ho Young then presents a strange metal object, asking him to hammer it into a funnel shape. With the piece perfectly crafted, he turns to his monster and commands, "All right, number 8, say, ah." The deer monster Ronnie opens its mouth wide as the strange device is placed inside, staring intensely. Ho Young then leaps onto its back, declaring they'll send the goblins flying while Ronnie panics. What? I'm not a warhorse. Don't worry, he says with a confident smirk. I'll coat you in my aura, so just trust me. The funnel is now firmly in place, transforming the creature into a bizarre, living weapon. Stealing its resolve, Ronnie accepts its fate, thinking, I will put my faith in you, my lord. The goblin horde freezes in shock as a strange sound echoes through the canyon. Get out of the way! It's a madman, they scream as Ho Young charges through their ranks on his monster mount. The weaker goblins are trampled underfoot, unable to even process the bizarre attack before they're crushed. But a massive, 2-meter-tall commander steps forward, roaring a brutal command. Anyone who retreats dies. Suddenly, a system window appears, identifying this new threat as a renowned enemy named Dual Glaive, who offers a massive reward. The system confirms that a short-term duel is required, a one-on-one fight for a special achievement and a huge prize. Ho Young analyzes the commander, realizing his stats are leagues above the others, truly earning him the hero tag. If taking him down gets me a massive reward, he smirks with greedy delight. Count me in. He points forward, commanding, Mandragora Deer, number 8. Charge that oversized goblin, as Ronnie nervously follows the order. But as the monster thunders forward, it's revealed Ho Young has absolutely no intention of actually trading blows with this monster. Instead of a duel, Ho Young unleashes his secret weapon. Ronnie's focused scream blasts the goblin commander's eardrums. The ear-splitting shriek stuns the renowned enemy, forcing the mighty Dual Glaive to drop the weapons he never lets go of. Now, Ho Young shouts, seizing the perfect moment of weakness to strike. He blitzes past the defenseless commander, a flash of blue energy slicing through the goblin's neck in an instant kill. A special achievement pops up, rewarding him with a massive 1000 EP for defeating his first-named monster. But this victory comes with a terrible side effect, as every goblin on the battlefield now sees him as their primary target. What's with all the noise, he mutters, sensing the sudden shift in the horde's aggression. Having witnessed their leader's demise, the enraged goblin overseers begin to swarm him all at once. Number 8, get behind the barricade, he yells, realizing he's in far too deep. The sky darkens as the true, overwhelming final wave begins its terrifying advance. With the horde closing in, Ho Young turns to his craftsman, asking if the flammable minerals are ready. You bet, Bernabal proudly declares, having prepared every last volatile piece for the trap. With a wicked grin, Ho Young orders the cannon to fire, showering the confused goblins with seemingly harmless rocks. Bonnell, now's the time, he yells, signaling the second, crucial phase of his plan. The half-blood mercenary confirms the order, loading a single, glowing stone into his slingshot. His shot lands perfectly among the scattered minerals, right at the goblin's feet. A goblin looks down in utter confusion, wondering what these strange rocks could possibly be. In the next instant, a cataclysmic explosion rips through their ranks, triggered by the single stone. A massive pillar of fire and smoke erupts, engulfing the entire vanguard of the goblin army. Trapped in their tight formation, the goblins are helplessly swept away by the devastating flames. With a cruel smirk, Ho Young watches the inferno, declaring, they burn quite well. But Lillian panics, realizing their own barricade is just as flammable. Her fears prove true as the burning goblins, now living torches, charge directly at their walls. For a split second, even the brilliant strategist is caught off guard by this suicidal tactic. Mandragorani, assemble! He roars, instantly switching to a desperate new plan. His countermeasure relies on his monster allies, the only ones who can intercept the enemy on the treacherous hillside. He breathes a sigh of relief, realizing the goblin's slow pace made his timing absolutely perfect. With a powerful stomp, he demonstrates the command for his troops to follow his lead. The Rani roar in response, their eyes glowing with power as they prepare to obey. In a unified, ground-shattering stomp, they trigger a massive rock slide to crush the charging horde. A lone goblin realizes its suicidal fire charge has been completely stopped by the rock slide. The flames crash uselessly against the new stone barrier, their attack utterly nullified. This ingenious trap not only crushed the horde, but also created a perfect firewall, protecting the allied side. The remaining goblins stare in disbelief, their path forward blocked, and their army decimated. From above, Ho Young coldly observes their despair, thinking, and what exactly can you even do in this situation? In truth, the goblins had no choices left. They were completely trapped. A cruel smirk crosses Ho Young's face as he prepares for his next move. Don't kill them, he commands his monsters. Just control it and make them scream. With their will to fight shattered, The few remaining goblin survivors are easily subdued and taken prisoner. But instead of execution, Ho Young begins to recruit them, using his monster's overwhelming power to turn enemies into allies. A happy Mandragorani greets the captured goblins with a cheerful hello. The creatures enthusiastically pitch the tamer territory as a paradise on Earth, leaving the goblins utterly confused. Just wait, one of them seems to say, a confident grin on its face. They boast about how well their lord cares for them, showing off their glossy leaves and cozy life. But the terrified goblins can only tremble in fear, expecting the worst. Don't be fooled. One goblin warns his kin. They're just fattening you up to eat you. Yet, seeing fellow monsters thriving begins to sway many of the captives, who start to believe the unbelievable. Suddenly, two fully equipped goblins appear, boasting, "The Lord gifted us armor taken from those goblin bastards." The sight of shiny new weapons, a tangible reward for their loyalty, leaves the remaining goblins speechless. And from the shadows, a cold blue eye watches as the Lord's master plan unfolds perfectly. A sinister chuckle escapes his lips as his grand manipulation comes to a head, because everything is going just as he planned. He unleashes his ultimate skill, wide area pacify, over the captive goblins. Instantly, the entire goblin force pledges their undying loyalty, a system notification confirming his absolute success. He's shocked at the incredibly low cost, realizing his psychological warfare made them easy to convert. Oh ho, I should remember that, he thinks, filing away this new, terrifyingly efficient method of conquest. After that, the remaining waves were simple to block, but the approaching horde smells something burning. They are met not by soldiers, but by a horrifying wall of flames built from the corpses of their own kind. Suddenly, the sky darkens as a massive volley of arrows rains down upon the trapped creatures. With their path forward blocked by fire and their retreat cut off, the goblins are helplessly annihilated. A system alert declares the final boss has arrived, but its random spawn location leaves Ho Young gambling on pure luck. Still, he devises a plan to split his forces, intending to hold the hobgoblin with one group while the other flanks. But the system's definition of random was far crueler than he imagined, as the boss spawns on a distant office rooftop. The scout, thinking the battle was over, suddenly warns, "Something is coming over there." His eyes widen in sheer terror as he struggles to even name the monstrous creature before him. "It's a hobgoblin!" he screams, as the hulking beast with glowing red eyes towers over him. The creature unsheathes a crude, heavy blade, its presence radiating pure menace. This isn't just any monster. It's the strongest entity among all goblinoids, a true apex predator. Ho Young curses, realizing random meant anywhere on the map, and immediately pulls up the hobgoblin's ridiculously high stats. Then, a horrifying realization dawns on him as he recalls the stage's defeat condition. The boss spawned exactly where he can't let it be. If that hobgoblin passes the East District office, it's game over for everyone. A system alert confirms the boss is an unpacifiable enemy, leaving Ho Young with no choice but to kill it from afar. But with the main force tied up, only a small number of reserves can possibly intercept the monster's path. The hobgoblin proves to be an unstoppable force, ruthlessly swatting aside any soldier who gets in its way. Its glowing eyes reveal a chilling intelligence as it commands itself. Take the main road, clear anything in the way. It completely ignores the terrified soldiers, ordering itself to stay focused and not waste time pursuing them. The creature marches on with a single-minded purpose, searching for the large building that marks its target. There's no mindless rage, only a cold, calculated intent as it moves towards its objective with terrifying efficiency. Watching through binoculars, Ho Young is completely baffled by its strange, methodical behavior. Suddenly, it all clicks. He remembers its attack pattern from the game. An unstoppable charge that blows away anything in its path. "My lord, please give us your orders," Lillian pleads, but Ho Young knows he's too far away, wishing he could just fly. Suddenly, an insane idea sparks in his mind as he mutters, "Wait, fly? Right, there was that method." He immediately springs into action, shouting for every soldier who can handle aura to gather. His troops snap to attention, instantly responding, "Yes, sir." He then issues a bizarre command. "Go to Advisor Burnaball, bring that, and help him get his armor off." The soldiers are completely stunned by the strange request. Stammering, What? With no time to waste, he yells, "Hurry, I'll explain later," and they scramble to obey. A baffled Lillian watches him, her mind racing with questions about his sanity. What are you planning to do, she wonders, but he simply tells her she'll find out soon enough. His men return with the requested mortar, but there's a fatal flaw: they have no shells large enough to take down a hobgoblin. Ho Young calmly declares he has a shell, pointing directly at himself. Don't tell me you're using yourself as the shell? Lillian screams, realizing the madness of his plan. But he insists that without this risk, the entire territory will fall. Defeated by his resolve, she can only whisper, "I understand." With her reluctant approval, he approaches the massive mortar, ready to climb inside. He settles into the barrel, surprised by how roomy it is, a small smile on his face. Suddenly, a system alert flashes. Payload exceeded, forcing him to admit he has no choice but to go further. His decision leaves Lillian and the soldiers completely speechless, their faces pale with shock. To their horror, he begins stripping off his remaining clothes to reduce the weight. Now, shirtless, he looks back at his stunned audience and asks if they have something to say. Lillian can only watch in horror as the system confirms the shell has been loaded successfully. Inside the barrel, Ho-young lets out a sigh of relief, finally ready for the insane launch. His soldiers strain to hold the massive weapon steady, tilting it just a little more on his command. With a final adjustment, they lock the mortar into the perfect angle, holding it firm. "Squeeze out every drop of aura and coat the barrel," he commands, reinforcing the weapon for the impossible shot. Meanwhile, Ho-young concentrates his own immense power, channeling a brilliant aura into his sword. As the system locks the trajectory, he screams the final order. "Maximum power. Fire!" On the battlefield, the hobgoblin commander looks up, sensing something is terribly wrong. It can only scream in disbelief as a human cannonball, wreathed in purple energy, hurtles down from the sky. And in that instant, Ho-young prepares to deliver a devastating strike that will decide the fate of the war. The hobgoblin commander flinches, its red eyes wide with a terror it has never known. A sickening crack echoes as the back of its skull shatters from the immense force. With a final, blood-soaked roar, Ho-young drives his blade straight through the beast's head, unleashing a torrent of purple energy. His consciousness returns with a groan. "Ugh, where am I?" Recognizing the familiar ceiling of the barracks. He remembers the flight, realizing he couldn't handle the speed and was thrown violently off course. "I must have blacked out," he thinks, the memory of the impact fading into nothingness. But then a familiar voice cuts through the haze. "Big brother, are you okay?" His heart stops as he sees them, his little sisters from a life he left behind, somehow standing right in front of him. He tries to scream, but his voice won't come out as their images begin to disappear into the void. Suddenly, reality crashes back in as his allies cry out in panic. "My lord, can you hear me?" So that was just a hallucination, Ho-young realizes, as his worried followers look on with restless eyes. The priestess Luvia calmly reassures everyone, stating that he is mostly healed at this point. With a deep sigh of relief, Ho-young weakly thanks her for the life-saving magic. But his adjutant Lillian suddenly cries out his name, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and fury. "What were you thinking?" she demands, revealing a terrifying truth. "My lord can no longer revive." "I know," he replies calmly, explaining it was an emergency and he had no other choice. Her anger instantly shatters as a single tear falls, her voice choked with emotion. "Then why did you risk it?" she cries, realizing just how close he came to permanent death. He stares at her, stunned by her tears, just as two familiar voices cry out from the doorway. Suddenly, his monster mount Ronnie and a gremlin companion burst into the room, forcing him to shout in alarm. His excited monster mount and a gremlin leap onto him, but Ho-young panics, screaming, "I don't want to do that again." After that, a long line of visitors arrives, with the craftsman Bernabal calling him a true madman for his insane stunt. Even his mages Meryl and Sakup express their relief, forcing the overwhelmed lord to wonder if he should hand out queue numbers. Though his reputation and pacification rates have skyrocketed, the after effects of his sacrifice leave him in agonizing pain. The priestess Luvia warns him not to move, revealing she only healed his shattered bones enough for him to be mostly fine. As Luvia tries to step aside, she's met with the intense, questioning gaze of his personal maid, Peach. Peach suddenly clings to him, declaring his body doesn't belong to him alone, much to his annoyance. Luvia agrees with the others, stating that his actions were far too reckless for someone in his position. She explains the severe impact of his fall but smirks, admitting she enjoyed the show before telling him to rest. But Peach erupts in fury, calling Luvia an incompetent priest for daring to smoke in front of a patient. Luvia calmly dismisses the maid's fury, explaining she's using medicinal herbs for a fumigation healing method. But Peach isn't having it, trembling with rage as she accuses the priestess of not taking her master's healing seriously. "That's enough," Ho-young cuts in, his voice strained, defending Luvia and directing Peach's attention elsewhere. He gestures towards a room filled with other soldiers, all gravely injured and unconscious from the brutal battle. Peach gasps in shock, finally understanding these are the men who were wounded holding back the hobgoblin horde. Ho-young explains the harsh reality. Luvia conserved her limited divine power by only partially healing him to save the others. As the only priest in the entire territory, Luvia is pushed to her absolute limit, her immense power still not enough for everyone. Realizing her mistake, a determined Peach vows to help, declaring she'll do anything to aid her lord's cause. Inspired, Ho Young decides he's rested enough to help too, though he cheekily warns there's no extra bonus for it. With neither argument settled, the focus shifts to the tools of a healer, a quiet promise of the difficult work ahead. A wounded soldier slowly awakens, his vision blurry as he asks, "You are?" It's Ho Young, already awake and tending to his men, his selfless actions causing their morale to skyrocket. As night finally falls, the brutal conflict seems to be over. Ho Young reflects on their hard-won victory, a flawless defense achieved without a single death. But far away, in a silent, shadowy throne room, a dark power begins to stir. At the same time, in the unexplored Crimson Land, a mysterious figure makes their move. They walk through a desolate hall, their purpose unknown and their presence chilling. The hooded figure whispers a single name with cold intent: Joran Tamer. Realizing they underestimated him, they vow to prepare proper monsters for the next attack. And across the barren wasteland, a new, more terrifying threat begins to gather. A monstrous bird descends from the sky, its sharp talons ready to strike. The giant black eagle lands with a ferocious screech, its eyes burning with a dark purpose. Meanwhile, back in the Lord's office, a mountain of paperwork is slammed down without warning. The joy of his flawless victory was but a fleeting moment for the exhausted Ho Young. His finance officer coldly informs him he must stamp every single document as the new mayor. "What is with all of this?" he cries, completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of his new duties. An entire day passes in a blur of endless, mind-numbing administrative work. He finally collapses onto the desk, muttering that the stamping alone took half a day. Desperate for a break, he decides to get some fresh air and heads for the balcony. But the moment he steps outside, a unified shout erupts from below. "The Lord has come out! My lord, this is too much!" A voice cries out, slamming down in protest. Ho Young groans, utterly exhausted by the endless demands of his new position. Outside, his people are in an uproar, shouting about monsters, broken pipes, and a critical housing shortage. He instantly regrets his decision, wishing he could just return to his real home in Korea. Desperate for a moment of solitude, he escapes to the one place he can be truly alone. He slumps onto the toilet, realizing this is the only sanctuary he has left. But even in this remote land, he's shocked to find a modern flush toilet, a sign of surprisingly high civilization. The advanced plumbing system is a small comfort, making it easier to adapt to this strange new world. He connects this to the citizens' complaints about the half-destroyed waterworks when a system window suddenly appears with a question. "What's with this sudden quiz?" he wonders. But the system clarifies this is not a quiz, but essential information for his survival. "Wait!" Ho Young cuts the system off, boldly claiming he already knows everything it's about to say. With a smug grin, he reveals he's a hardcore fan of this world's game, having memorized every detail from its wiki. He recounts how the continent was once a barren wasteland, an uninhabitable hell swarming with savage monsters. The god Aia granted humanity a single sanctuary, the Garden of Joy, which would become the capital of Abel. But not all were content, and the ambitious King Cain led a group out of paradise to forge their own kingdom. While the god Aia was angered by their defiance, 5 archangels took pity on the mortals and bestowed upon them gifts. They blessed the new lands with wisdom, courage, vitality, and abundance, turning the harsh wilds into a home. One angel even descended to the mortal realm, living among humans to spread knowledge and advancements. In her final moments, she sacrificed her own immortality to leave behind the ultimate blessing for humanity: resurrection. Ho Young finishes his perfect recitation, only for the system to offer no reward, leaving him utterly dumbfounded. The system reveals a new, world-altering mission: find and purify an unknown evil that is weakening the divine blessings. For the last 10 years, monsters have ravaged the kingdom, with his own tamer territory suffering the most severe damage. A massive invasion just 3 years prior left the land in ruins, with countless casualties and destroyed infrastructure. He clutches his head in despair, realizing the list of destroyed facilities is already overwhelming. Desperate for a timeline, he asks when the next stage begins, only to see a terrifying countdown: 9, 8. But the timer reveals it's actually 98 days, and he curses the system for scaring him like that. He realizes the 9-8-day reprieve is a reward for his S+ performance, giving him a moment to finally catch his breath. Just as he relaxes, a risk factor alert warns of unexpected battles before the next stage even starts. His main quest is now territory reconstruction, but the stats are abysmal, with population at a shocking 29%. Staring at the mess, he's faced with a critical choice: strengthen his military, or rebuild the shattered infrastructure. Ho Young sighs, burdened by an impossible choice from the system. He can either strengthen his military and starve his people, or feed them and leave them defenseless, a lose-lose scenario that makes him scream in frustration. But just as despair sets in, a sudden realization strikes him. A sly grin spreads across his face as a brilliant, rule-breaking idea begins to form. "I can just do both, can't I?" he declares, ready to forge his own path outside the system's rules. His entire journey has been a series of these endless crossroads, forcing him to choose between two seemingly opposite paths. From the very beginning, he had to decide between a safe, slow detour or a fast but monster-infested main road. Later, he was forced to choose which monster horde to face: the cunning gremlins or the brutish trolls. He reflects that if he had chosen differently, his entire future would have changed, and he never would have met his key allies. And he certainly wouldn't have tamed the powerful Mandragorani, whose unique abilities were critical to his survival. He remembers how choosing the troll-infested path allowed him to meet the brilliant craftsman, Burnaball, and it was that same decision that led him to recruit the powerful weather mage, Mayril. Even when porters demanded hazard pay, he found a third answer beyond the system's rules. "We are ready to fight," he declared, offering them a share of the rewards and turning dissent into cooperation. With Peach, he faced a choice, with a near-zero success rate for persuasion. So instead, he gave the choice to her, brilliantly bypassing the system's impossible odds. This time as well, "I will find a third option," he decides, planning to split his resources 50-50. But the system instantly shatters his confidence with a single, brutal word: impossible. He's trapped, forced to choose between A or B with only 1 hour left on the clock. He tries to find another loophole, asking what monster comes next, but the system's cold denial echoes once more. "Whose side are you on, the angels or the evil?" he demands, refusing to accept a neutral answer. The system declares it's on no one's side, but is the only one that can help him fight the encroaching evil. Its assistants will even change depending on their bond, a feature he's never seen in any web novel. He suddenly realizes he knows nothing about this unique status window, sheepishly apologizing for his ignorance. But when he asks for its identity, the system coldly denies him, citing insufficient game progress. It finally reveals its name is Daliha, a name both unfamiliar and strangely nostalgic, before presenting him with another critical choice. Before choosing, he cleverly probes for details on the supplies, hoping they'll just spawn in front of him. With a confident smirk, he immediately makes his decision without a moment's hesitation, choosing option B. But the system reveals a catch: the supplies will take an entire week to arrive. In the meantime, Ho Young gets to work improving his territory, calling for his trusty mount, Ronnie. Ho Young realizes his pacified monsters are the key to rebuilding, starting with Ronnie's strength for transport and farming. Even the once feared goblins, with their high endurance, are repurposed as a tireless labor force for the harshest jobs. They handle the dirty work no one else wants, from cleaning chimneys to maintaining septic tanks without complaint. But their greatest asset is their sheer numbers, providing an endless supply of hands for major construction projects. Brick by brick, the territory begins to rise from the ashes, built on the backs of these tamed monsters. Meanwhile, the dexterous gremlins prove to be exceptional craftsmen, repairing and creating vital equipment with their nimble hands. Their natural stealth and night vision also make them perfect sentries, guarding the burgeoning town from the shadows. And Bawunal, using his old explorer skills, sets up traps to secure food and defend their borders from wild beasts. With the Mandragorani reproducing at an incredible rate, the question of feeding this new monster population is surprisingly, and completely, solved. The Mandragorani naturally clear the wastelands of weeds, creating a self-sustaining ecosystem, while the goblins handle the grim task of cleanup, devouring the carcasses of any fallen creatures. Ho Young smirks at his perfect automated system as his territory's reconstruction progress skyrockets. By using monsters for labor, his soldiers are now free to focus solely on training, a brilliant strategic move. With everything running smoothly, he decides it's finally time for a well-deserved break in his office. But just as he relaxes, a strange, slurring voice calls out to him. "Mystere." He whips around, recognizing the trembling voice of his maid. "Peach, what's wrong?" He gasps, a sudden wave of concern washing over him as he finally sees her state. Tears stream down her face as he urgently asks, "You're crying? What happened?"